Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Chelmsford Conservation Commission meeting. This meeting is being recorded and televised.
No, it's not televised.
Was it not televised?
No. Select Board didn't televise.
Oh, I got the,
Can't televise.
Very good. Well, it is being recorded. And at this point on tonight's agenda, the first item is any open session or citizen concern. So if someone here tonight has a citizen concern, then please just step forward, let us know your name and address for the record, and we'll take that first thing tonight. Okay? All right. So no open session citizen concern. So we'll move on. We do have a very full agenda tonight, but we'll move right into our regulatory hearings. And the first item we have in tonight's hearing is a request for determination of applicability. The applicant's the town of Chelmsford. It's related to the 45 Adams Street Varney Playground. And do we have a legal notice, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, we do. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 205 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Bill Ricker Road on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Town of Chelmsford Department of Public Works for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 45 Adams Street, Varney Playground, further identified as Assessor's Map 13, Lot 30, Lot 4. The project entails grading and landscaping associated with improvements to Varney Playground. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And now we'll hear from a representative of the Town of Chelmsford Department of Public Works.
Steve Callahan, I work for the DPW, and I'm the playground coordinator. The playground right now, Varney Playground, is roughly 22 years old. It's made out of wood, and some of you folks might have been involved with putting it in. And it's time that we get a new playground. So right on the edge, there's just a tiny little spot for about between 9 and 10,000 square feet. There's just a little slice that actually gets into the 100-foot buffer. You can see it right here.
Can you orient us? Where's
Yeah, so why don't we go with this? This will be the lake down here.
Okay.
Right here, the bathhouse, the existing bathhouse is right here. So this would be the lake right here. And here's the playground. And this little slice right here you can see is at the 100-foot buffer. So at this point, we're not planning on doing installing anything there, but when we demo it, we're gonna have to grade it out. We have a local company there's the plans right here. And we're also, if you could scroll up a little bit, the other way, yep. We're going to address the ADA component. We're going to pull the ADA, the path back, and just start bringing it down earlier on and bring it into the playground. Instead of using the ramp that's there now that has, because I'm not an ADA expert, it has railings and stuff. I think we're going to eliminate all that if we can pull this off. You can see we are going to do some of it. We're going to use if you can scroll up a little bit. We've got a lot of water coming off where the ball field is. So we have a swale that's going to be right here. It will catch a lot of the water coming off and push it out towards the woods.
So, can you stop right there?
Yes.
Where is, what is it, Cart Path? Where's Cart Path Lane relative to? Is that the name of the one we've had all the problems with?
Yeah, that's in the vicinity.
Yeah,
Where,
that's
do
over
you know
the
where
hill.
Cart Path
It's
Lane is
not
in
that close.
relationship to this?
Further down.
Yeah,
No.
It's over the hill.
Down to the left, I think.
yeah, it's not immediately adjacent.
Yeah.
No, okay. So you're talking about the,
Yeah, so we have a swale here. We have an erosion issue there that we've sort of, with the use of waters, we've sort of pushed the water around the playground at this point. It's just a Band-Aid. We've used it for 3 years. We're hoping that this swale here can catch everything coming down, or quite a bit of it, and push it over into the woods.
okay, let's stop right there. I want to know what that woods is. Because remember, guys, the problem we had with Russell and the hill up, there's a hill up there, there's water running off this high topography, right? It goes like 15 feet down to behind Russell Road. Remember the problem we're having between the Davenports and the other guys? I wanna make sure that there's no water coming off of Varney that's gonna aggravate that situation. So, I'm a little concerned when you say we're gonna push the water into the woods. I need to know a little bit more about that, I think.
Yeah, you're probably getting beyond my expertise here.
All right, well, let's, please continue with the overview, and then the next step is
Okay.
we'll go to the individual commissioner questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but, you know, they also, it's Hancock Associates that did this layout.
Sure.
And they also, if you bring it up, they added mechanical method of pushing some of the water. If you've been to Vonnie, there's quite a bit of erosion
Yes.
on the hill next to right in here. And they have a solution for that, which a catch basin that will bring the water over. And another one here, I believe there's a third one that they've added on. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Good. Well, thanks for the overview, and then what we'll do is we'll have to go to the commissioner's questions. Mr. McLaughlin, comments,
Where do the
questions?
catch basins go?
They'll go to the woods.
The same place from same place where the swales go.
Yeah, roughly speaking, yeah, down here.
Now, is this, I don't think it does, is this map, can we pull back from that map, can we see down to Russell or not? Probably
No,
not.
I don't think we can go that far.
Okay. I know there's, you go from Varney, I don't know the street name, but then there's a row of houses, right? Then behind the row of houses is Cart Path.
That's correct.
And then behind Cart Path is that depressed area where there's a water problem, and then you go out to Groton Road. I need to understand if the water from Varney is gonna end up aggravating that spot that's under contention by the neighbors.
So you can see on the locus here, you can see car path.
Okay.
So there it is there.
Okay, so from that locus, where is the water gonna go? Can you,
I think it's gonna go in this direction,
Yes.
down like that.
okay, so it's gonna go, so it's going down, and so this is the end of Russell right here.
Yeah, correct.
So it's gonna go down towards Freeman Lake?
Yes.
Is it gonna run untreated into Freeman Lake?
Well, after having sheet flowed over the buffer zone.
Yeah, beyond it.
That's how it's
Yeah.
being treated.
Yes, essentially. It's not obvious to me that there's a big problem with that.
No, but it's not obvious to me that there isn't. Okay, so.
It's a good question.
That's
Good
my
question.
question, sorry.
And we don't have, I don't think we have a full answer for that yet. So thanks, Dave. Moving along,
Thank you, gentlemen.
yeah, Mr. Coombs, further comments as our agent?
Sure. The thing I really noticed was, I think, the major problem out there when I did the site visit with Steve and Scott was the erosion. I think there is a real problem with erosion on the slope, down gradient toward the lake. And I think that this will definitely go a long way toward alleviating that situation. In terms of what happens to the water after it, let me just go back here. In terms of what happens to the water after it comes out of the outlets or the outlet, I didn't really look at that. But it is you can see here the contours to go downhill toward the lake. I think as long as there's no erosion coming out of the outlet there, I don't think it'll be a problem. I can go out and take a closer look at it. We can talk to Hancock.
Dave, this is not Freeman Lake.
Right.
This is what?
That's the woods, I think, right?
It is.
I'm trying to understand, where's the woods relative to Russell? Can you pull it back a little bit?
Sure.
Because as I recall, the topography behind the house on Russell went from like 145 to about 130, or maybe even lower. By the time it got down to the depression where the problem is, it's like 120. This elevation change on this map, I'm sorry, Dave, can you flip back out
Zoom out.
so we can see the, I think it's only like 15 feet, right?
Do have a,
Here, yeah. Oops, here we go here. 130 to 125, it's only showing 5 feet.
Yeah, but
Where's-
Callahan, maybe just,
Where's the other, is the other elevation off the site? And is this water gonna go to that lower spot?
I think that's a good question, Dave. We might want to go out and take a look around, honestly, to get some comfort around what's gonna happen out there,
Because that was a big.
you know?
we happen to meet you guys out there anytime.
Exactly, and now we got light now.
So this is in
Yeah.
relation to the brick building? Is the brick building over in here?
The brick
The old brick building that's,
they want bathhouse.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Is
would
that
be-
over, is that over
No,
here?
that would be, right here. That's it, right
Okay.
there. Here's the playground.
And this is the house at the end of Russell?
This is the house at the end of Russell. This is,
There's a new house being built at the end
this,
of Russell.
yeah.
Okay, all right, I know where I am.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
So this water is not running towards, it's not running towards Russell,
Right,
it's running down towards the beach.
yeah.
Right.
And as you face Freeman Lake, the bathhouse would be on your right, the water would be going to the left of the bathhouses. I think that's what you said. Whatever surface water there is. So the
Right.
3 catch basins plus surface water. So someone maybe, the issue of erosion, you raised it there. That's about, because if that's open water running off Carney Playground down the beach and into Freeman Lake,
Right.
we're gonna have a problem.
I mean, the other thing is, honestly, is it might be well to come back, continue to the next meeting, have the engineer come in and kind of take us through some of the details around this thing as well,
I
too.
wonder if the water couldn't be taken underground and just into a detention basin or something. As opposed
I mean, if there's really an erosion issue, you could just put riprap stone.
No, there's a lot of erosion.
Right, but the swale shouldn't be a grass swale, if there's
It's not for
erosion.
us to remedy.
It should be a riprap stone, there should be outlet, there should be riprap at
You
the
don't
outlet
want
of the catch
sheet flow in
basins.
Freeman Lake.
Right, no, so.
Anyone else want to see this?
Yeah, that's it, John, Dave, it'd be good.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Vines, comments, questions?
I think we should continue this
Yeah.
and have a site walk and have the engineer on the site, because there's a lot of issues, Steve, right? With erosion by the beach in front of the playground. There's still erosion where that meandering handicap ramp comes down.
Yes, there
There's
is.
still problems there.
Retaining walls.
Right, plus you've got in the woods there, wasn't there a Boy Scout, some kind of Boy Scout?
That's been vandalized. on
Okay, so
numerous
that's not in the
occasions.
woods, so that's pretty much where you run in the water though,
Yes,
where that Boy Scout thing was.
right.
So I really think we wanna do it right this time, if we're gonna do drainage and pipes underground and change the flow of the way the water, because there's not just a little bit of erosion down there, it really comes down that hill and onto the beach into the water, so I think we just continue with Chris, and
Yeah.
that's my opinion. And
Yeah.
have the engineer meet us out there and really go over it, and maybe come up with even better ideas to add to this.
Yeah, so Steve, you could get back to Dave, kind of maybe set up a
Yeah,
date,
we'll work it out.
and the commissioner will just come out to the sidewalk with the engineer, kind of, yeah, getting out there on site's gonna address a lot of concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do Tuesday evenings work in general
Yeah,
for members?
Tuesdays, generally good,
Except for the second floor.
sometimes,
Well, although the next meeting after this one is until the 10th.
the 10th, May 10th, so we'd have to continue to May 10th for the hearing, but then get a sidewalk in before that.
Yeah, so the 3rd would work well for me.
Yep.
May 3rd, so.
All right,
My birthday is it?
it's his birthday? Oh, yeah, perfect, you know, we can celebrate that too, you know?
Who would you rather be?
Exactly, where would you want to be? With this, guys?
So I'll send out an email confirming,
Tuesday.
say, at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, does that work?
You have to check with Hancock, make sure somebody will be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just confirm with Hancock and we'll take it from there. So if we could have a motion then to continue this meeting.
Before we do that, Chris, is this what I would consider to be second phase of Varney Playground? The first phase was completed?
No, this would be first phase.
This is still in the first phase, so there's more work to be done after this at
Yes,
some future date?
yes.
Will it be in this area as well, or will it be elsewhere?
It will be in this area.
In this area as well. Remember, this has become a pretty expensive project. So this is the first work that will be done addressing whatever runoff there is, if there is runoff. I mean, Varney Playground looks like it's fairly flat, at least certainly out in the ball field area. But will this be addressing all of the runoff on the site, or just for this playground area that you're talking about?
I would say from the bathhouse through the playground area.
Okay, so if there is other runoff issues elsewhere on the Varney Playground area, those will be addressed in the second phase?
They can be, I know some.
I don't know if there are. But
Yeah, well, I mean, the ADA ramp, it does have water coming down, like you said.
Right.
I wouldn't mind looking at that at
Right.
some future date too.
Before we continue though, this is a public hearing, so if somebody from the public does have a question or comment before we continue to our next meeting, the next meeting will be again another public hearing, but I don't want to shut off any public questions that we might have at this point. All right, seeing none, all right. Any further discussion or questions before we continue this matter to our next meeting, which is on May 10th? Can I have a motion then to continue to our next meeting on May 10th, subject to a site walk taking place before then? So moved by Chris and seconded by Mark. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None, unanimous. So thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your time coming in
Thank you very
here.
much.
Look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay, next up on tonight's agenda is a request for determination of applicability. This is related to 32 Rainbow Avenue, and we'll have another legal notice again for the record. Mr. Clark?
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 205 of the Chelmsford Town Offices, 54 River Road, on Tuesday, April 19, 2022, at 7:05 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owners Langsy, Tabone, and Kuthei Harun for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetation wetlands at 32 Rainbow Avenue, further identified as Assessor's Map 39, Block 131, Lot 30. The project entails construction of a new 12-foot by 16-foot, 192 square foot, 3-season porch to the rear of the existing house entirely within the footprint of the existing deck. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And then now we'll have an overview of the project and the work by the representative of the applicant. So, sir, if you could just identify yourself and your firm for the record and give the commission an overview of what's taking place.
Yep, sure. I'm Paul Campbell at Chess Engineering. I'm the engineer and surveyor of record for this project. I'm here today with Joe Orzel from Lucas Environmental to do the resource area flagging, and Bob LaFleur of Building Professionals Inc., who's the general contractor for the project. So we filed an RDA here. We're building a 3-season porch that's entirely located within the footprint of an existing foundation. There appears to be an addition that was there before previously. Now it's just a concrete pad foundation that exists today. So we're building a smaller footprint 3-season porch entirely within that footprint area. We're here today because we're within 100 feet of the resource areas as shown on the plan. But no new impervious surfaces are proposed. No work is being done in the disturbance area, and there's really no new stormwater runoff or anything like that requiring any sort of engineering design. So that pretty much is the site work. The work is pretty minimal. And then Joe here can talk about the resource areas.
Sure.
For the record, Joe Orzo, Lucas Environmental. Resource areas present at the site include inland bank for drainage stream and bordering vegetated wetland. The bank is fairly well defined, generally 3.5 to 6 feet wide, bisects the site, flowing west to east, located here, flagged by flags BF11 through BF110. In the northeast edge of the developed part of the lot is a BBW that extends from the bank of the stream. North of the delineated resource areas, the lot is undeveloped and forested. South of the delineated bank, the site is developed with lawn and landscaping, generally up to the edge of the bank. And the buffer zones extend from the bank and the BBW onto the front portion of the lot, with almost the entire developed portion of the lot being within the 100-foot buffer zone. There is no mapped certified vernal pools or potential vernal pools on site. The area is not within an ORW or ACEC. There is no FEMA flood, 100-year flood zone on site. And the only thing that really comes up is it is within mapped DEP Zone 2 wellhead protection, as well as the town of Chelmsford Aquifer Protection Zone 2. That's a quick summary of the resource areas that are present.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for the overview. So now we'll have the commission see if we have any questions or preliminary comments from the commissioners. Mr. McLaughlin, if you can start us out.
What kind of excavation will there be for the porch? Sun tubes or foundation or what?
For the record, again, Bob LaFleur, Building Professionals, Inc. in West, we're going to be using helical piers.
So you won't have any material to be taken off-site or on-site?
There may be some concrete from the existing foundation that we're going to have to pull out to get the piers where they need to be so we don't expand the footprint.
Behind it, any landscaping, additional landscaping from what's there?
No.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Dave. Good. Mr. Coles, as an agent, do you have any preliminary comments?
Sure, so this actually is the first I've heard that it's going to be on piers. My understanding when I did the site visit with Jake from your office was that it would go entirely on the concrete, big block of concrete that's out there. So, and my understanding additionally was that concrete would not have to be disturbed at all, but I guess that's not the case.
The application had the helical piers, the RDA application. Jake from Lucas Environmental he wasn't versed in the construction methods, but everything's taking place within that foundation. Nothing's taking place outside of that foundation.
So the helical piers will actually then be installed in that concrete.
So we're kind of going with the shore bet. We don't know what is in there, what the footing depth or anything is. So we're just going to say, look, we're planning on, from a cost perspective for the client, to get rid of this thing and just put the piers in. I really doubt, just by looking at it from experience, that it is properly footed. So that's why we're going that route.
Okay, so most of that existing concrete, block or pad, whatever you call it, is probably going to have to go.
The client doesn't have a big objection if we kind of get rid of what we have to, and the rest just kind of sits quietly beneath their new sunroom. So we're going to minimize it as much as we can.
Well, honestly, I did. I think I asked the question when I was out there. Does it conform to the building codes? And not because the commission particularly cares about conforming to building codes, but if it was something that the building inspector was going to require a lot of excavation and disturbance in order to satisfy the building codes. So that was the concern. So it sounds like some of that at least will probably have to be done.
As little as possible.
Okay. The couple of other things we talked about at the site visit was erosion control. There's no erosion control shown on this plan. I thought the revised plan would come back showing the erosion control.
Yeah, we hadn't proposed anything, but we can, as a condition, if you want to condition it, we can add, straw hay bales along the resource area. It's only because we weren't doing any work in the landscape, no landscape or anything.
Right, and I thought it was good to put some in case, but
Yeah,
if the porch was gonna go entirely on the concrete block without the block being disturbed, I mean, I wasn't particularly concerned, but now it sounds like maybe there will be some soil disturbance and excavation, so I do think it's important that there be erosion control, and again, that condition can go in the determination.
that's not a problem at all.
And then just the one last thing was the drainage from the roof runoff. And I talked a little bit with the property owner who was out there, and he said, and I agree with him, it makes sense to work with a contractor on that, exactly how that's going to be handled, whether it's best to do it with, gutters and downspouts, or, just draining into a crushed stone-filled trench along the base. I don't think it makes a huge difference, but I think, we will know, prior to construction, we will have to know how that's being done.
Okay, yeah, like I agree, it made more sense for the contractor to talk, since we weren't adding any impervious area, so I didn't want to, suggest rain barrels or anything extravagant, but there's no contours on this plan, it's pretty basic, but when you're out there, the street, it slopes up to a crest and then kind of heads back down, so maybe they could do something with the gutters, directing it down the driveway back to the street, but yeah, we can.
The house gutters now are just dumping in the lawn, right?
I honestly, I'm a site guy, so like
It's a fairly old house.
Yeah, so I'm sure the contractor can make whatever work.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a matter of meeting with him prior to the start of construction, just, come up with a plan.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Hey, Mr. Lewis. Bill, when you do the revised plan and you put the hay bales on that,
Yep.
can you also change the plan? It says on the plan, proposed deck
Yep.
on foundation of existing deck.
Okay.
Can you change that to the bales? So there's no question. Carl? Good.
Yep, John, good. Mark? I don't know how much concrete's involved. You got the demo, you get these in there. Is it gonna be done by hand, gonna be done by machine?
It's gonna be done with just a large demo hammer, but not a mini excavator or anything like that, just by hand with a large demo hammer.
So you're gonna have equipment in that area?
No, just an electric.
Oh, I thought you said a hammer on a mini excavator.
No. Just a demo hammer, because we only have to get
Okay.
on a 16-foot deck, we only need 3 piers.
No, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Good, all right. Thanks. Chris?
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good. This is Dave, right? Something? No?
Do you want a motion on this, or are you
Well,
gonna?
let's just see if
Are
there's
you
any,
gonna continue till you get the revised plans?
let's just see if we, is there any public input questions? What's your timing on this? I mean, could be, we could either continue this to our next meeting, which is May 10th, and finish it up then, get the revised plans back. It's generally our preference, if possible, unless there's some sort of urgent timing with the situation.
This, I think, is pretty straightforward. other
Yeah.
than the-
I mean, my
the
preference-
-3 in the request for
Yeah.
determination.
Yeah.
Yeah, my preference would be a condition, and before construction starts, it's a really easy, straightforward thing to
Okay.
address.
All right. Yeah, I have no objection to that approach. So if we could then have a motion here with the conditions that we discussed for a -3 determination, that would provide the approval of the project, obviously subject to getting those revised plans.
I move the issue on a request for determination, -3 for 32 Rainbow Avenue. With conditions that there were 4 of them, correct?
We had the revised plan.
Revised plan showing the nature of the foundation,
Yes.
The
control.
roof erosion control, if the foundation has to be moved, right? And,
Stormwater.
straw wattles, not hay bales,
Straw wattles.
not hay bales, right? And then there was a question on roof runoff, but that wasn't a request, it was just a question. I don't think we got an answer because they hadn't addressed it. But I don't think
Yeah,
roof
it's a matter-
runoff's a big deal.
No, it's a matter of working with the contractor.
Yeah.
So three.
I think it's three.
And
That's
Bill,
my
you
motion.
got, Bill, you good? Is that addressed?
Yeah, they just.
Okay, good. All right, so a motion by Dave then with those conditions. We have a second on that motion.
Second.
Bill Vines on the second. Any further discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Unanimous. So you're approved. We'll have the paperwork ready within typically a few days in the office, so good luck.
I gotta say, this is the most complete presentation I've seen for a request for determination. No, I appreciate it.
It was excellent, excellent.
Usually we want an idea, we have, so tell me what you wanna do.
Right.
Yeah, I like the overview of the resources, BVD. What was the address in this one? This was,
32 Rainbow. Mark, you keep an eye on it, you probably see the construction from your house.
here we go.
Yeah, I'll be watching.
Be downstairs. Downstairs.
I read this was a very thorough presentation.
Yeah.
What's that?
For an idea here.
Sorry, the old day ones.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's next? Chris?
All right, we're just finishing the paperwork up.
Oh, okay.
We
Don't
just
forget
signed
that, don't forget you need signatures out here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, next up on tonight's agenda is another request for determination of applicability. This is related to 19 Northview Avenue. We have a legal notice, it needs to be read into the record. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, we do. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 205 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, at 7:10 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Bob Diaz for proposed work within the 100-foot buffer zone to bank Hart Pond at 19 Northview Avenue, further identified as Assessor's Map 123, Block 483, Lot 10. The project entails replacement of an existing deck and footings utilizing precast pier foundations and pressure-treated lumber. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you very much, and now we'll have an overview from the applicant's representative.
Let's go back to follow the most thorough and complete
That's a tough, that's a tough,
possible, but.
that's a tough act to follow.
So my name is Brad Egan, I'm the contractor and contractor for the project. The quick overview is that there's an existing deck off the back of the house between the pond and the house. It's deficient, it's falling apart to be frank. There's some footings in there, they're heaving and they're not really structurally adequate for what it's holding. So the goal here is to replace that deck. You can see there the only variation would be a slight change to that clipped corner. We would square that off, that's just the preference of the homeowner, but obviously not a deal breaker. If we wanted to keep that exact footprint, we could. You'd be open to that. So
Why did they design it that way in the first place?
I don't know.
Of course you
Yeah,
know. Of course you know.
Yeah, exactly. There's not really record of this, so hence it's drawn on here like this. But we've taken some measurements to what we assume is the high water line there. We get 42 feet from the end of the stairs. The other side is roughly 45 feet, but we're planning to square up that corner. So the sequence of work here would be to install 12-inch wattles to protect the water, and then take a mini excavator, pull those existing footings that are poured in place, and then dig for new precast footings, place those and frame the deck and finish it. And so that's really it.
No, thanks, Brad, for your review. Appreciate that. Let's see if the commission has any comments or questions. Maybe we start down this end with Mr. Spooler.
Sure. So you said you are putting straw wattles in for erosion control?
Yes, and I spoke to Dave about that, and he'd like to put that on the plan, but happy to revise this and put that on there.
But I think, did you give me a work sequence?
I did, it's in there on the second page, I believe.
On the last page?
I think it's on the second page of the application.
So, and I think you included that.
Yeah, install erosion protection there. Right, right there, I see it, so, right. So the plan would be to put that in there, have you inspect it, make sure you're satisfied, and then, we talked about some other conditions, making sure the equipment, that mini excavator, when it is on site, park it well away from the water up by the driveway side of the house, just to make sure there's no fluids leaking or anything like that that's, down in the work area. And then any material that's, excavated from the site will be removed, and backfill with material from the site. So, really, we're just trying to replace those deficient footings with something that's gonna, support the deck.
Good. All right, Chris, any more questions?
And then you said that the footprint of the deck is staying, other than that squaring off that corner? Okay, I'm fine.
Good. Mark?
The footing that's there now, what is it?
They're poured in place. Some of them are 6-inch diameter, some of them are 8-inch diameter. The deck was done in many phases, so the spacing of them is not uniform. And some have moved and heaved, some are completely buried. So you have, pressure treated or lumber, whether it's pressure treated or not, it's tough to tell. But, lumber buried the posts, sitting on the footing below grade. So we need to get that up to standard where we have, regular precast footings, regular intervals, the framing plan in here as well, just to show those and be able to support the deck.
How many precast are going in?
I believe the count is 14. We have the deck, the stairs turn there, so we need a couple there for the landing, and 2 landings there. And then the length of the deck on the exterior there on the top of kind of pointing on the right side.
You're gonna leave the old ones in place?
I would like to pull them, just in case there's conflicting spots where we need new ones.
Yeah.
So the plan would be to, extract those with the mini excavator, and then take, scoop down to put our precast piers in where we need.
Yeah, I guess if you don't have to take them out, I'd rather not, because you're gonna be inside of the 50-foot notice. If you could just leave the ones you don't have to take out, leave them there. Are they gonna be inside of that? Is that a cantilever beam?
No, we'll use an edge beam,
Okay.
just because it's not that high off the ground. So we want to be able to use that space on the deck, or there's storage under there. So rather than have a drop beam, we're putting a wind beam.
Okay. Yeah, whatever you can not disturb, that'd
Sure.
be best.
Absolutely.
There's no trees or anything coming out to do this, okay. Yeah, I think you have everything else you wanted for the silk fence. I noticed you had silk fence, but you didn't have any kind of, it's a straw wattle, just to keep it.
Yeah, and that was just a, nomenclature thing. I absolutely have a water.
Okay,
Perfect.
Good. Very good. All right, John?
These gonna be the Bigfoot?
Yeah, they're square.
Okay,
I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, I've seen
Cast, they're kind of
Yep,
tapered like that.
Okay.
To the top, yeah. So the goal would be to not pour in place, again, because
Right.
we're in a sensitive area, so we want to
Yeah.
use precast.
okay. And there's 14?
There are, it's a long
Yeah.
span of deck there, so, that was, using a triple 2x12, that's kind of as far apart as they could get them
Okay,
to go across.
all right. I see nothing.
Yep.
Could Mark ask the question, how many, and that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. All right. Carl?
And no tree removal or anything like that? Yeah, I'm good.
Right, all right, Bill? It's pretty simple. I don't have any problem with you squaring off the deck either, if that's an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have to vote on it? I don't have an issue with that.
Sure.
Square enough.
All right, good, Mr. Coombs?
Just the only other thing Brad and I talked about at the site visit was drainage. I guess that's not a concern because the deck is essentially pervious.
Right. Kind of same as it is now.
Okay, good.
Take a moment.
Yeah, Bill?
Any landscaping, when you dig that up, you're gonna go out a few feet away from the deck. When you dig your piers, what are you gonna put back? The grass?
We'll just grade it back with
What's
the
there now?
fill from the site. It's grass, but it's very thin, it's kind of just dirt, you know.
We just wanted to make sure, what's the grade? The grade there?
It stays fairly flat out to, I'd say, this area here. So there isn't a significant slope until we get to, about here, and then there's a little bit of a drop off.
Right, I just wanna make sure none of that disturbed material.
Yeah, our silt fence will be above that,
Okay.
so we won't need to go anywhere near
Okay.
that.
Good, good, all right, good. Mr. Papa? Any further
Where's
questions?
Northview?
You have to go through Westford to get
Then you have to go through Westford to get to it?
We do, it's in a tiny little corner.
All of those properties, the
exclave.
is pretty flat to the water.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Good, all right.
Yep.
Well, this is a public hearing, so if anybody from the public has a question or comment for the applicant, just let us know, raise your hand, step forward. All right, no public input. This is a request for negative determination. Applicability and -3 would be especially an approval. We have someone with a motion here.
Do you have to add something, you have to revise the plan with the straw walls in it?
Yeah, let's like put a note in, that condition in, that the plans will be revised, noting that it says, straw walls / silt fencing for erosion controls. Bill, is that your motion then?
Yes.
Approval -3 with the condition. Yeah. All right,
Second.
and seconded by Carl. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, none. Unanimous. So we're all set, Brad. Thank you very much. That was a good presentation, too.
We're all going downhill from now. Sorry, Katie.
All right.
A very high standard tonight, very high standard. All right, so we'll have some approval paperwork, will make its way, well, it's already making its way down for signature. We're very efficient tonight. Take a moment, we'll just sign the paperwork.
Did the princess get his?
Yeah, let's get to.
He's on I think he's on Twitter right now.
Property.
Sending for Westford now.
Okay, there we go.
Space him out down there?
I think so. He's in the bad boy room. He's not even listening either. Dave, we love you, Dave.
What?
You're in your own little world right now. You're in your own little world.
That's a better place to be.
A world without Gibbs.
Hey, we thought it was very appropriate to have you guys sitting so close together tonight. We really
I've been
thought,
nice all evening.
we're hoping on your best behavior.
We're holding you for a little bit.
Kumbaya.
All right, tonight's, moving along on our tonight's agenda here, we have a notice of intent for 13 AKA 9 Acton Road. So we have another legal notice for the record, Mr. Clerk?
We do, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 205 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Bill River Road, Tuesday, April 19, 2022, at 7:15 p.m. to consider the notice of intent filed by John Faneros on behalf of property owner Gerald Yaffa for proposed work within Riverfront area, Beaver Brook, and 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands and banks at 13 AKA 9 Acton Road, further identified as Assessor's Map 84, Block 336, Lot 19. The project entails demolition of an existing 25,834 square foot commercial building and construction of 18 townhouse units with garage and surface parking, stormwater management infrastructure, utility connections, and new access to Acton Road. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're now here, we'll now have an overview presentation by our representative of the applicant, Ms. Katie Enright from Howard Stein Hudson. We've had some excellent presentations this evening, so it's really keep up.
I'm the only notice of intent though, right?
You
So,
are the only intent, so it's a higher
Trying to get
standard.
one here?
what's that? Not tonight,
You're
no.
not trying to get one
Not
in?
trying to get one tonight, that's for sure, no. Good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson, the project engineer. I'm here tonight with Mr. Kevin Ahern, who's also here on behalf of the applicant. I'm my reader, this is David. I also have some pretty colored plans, which will help you probably follow along a little bit better. And this is what's on the screen. I sent this to David earlier today. So if you can take one and pass it along. So to start the confusion, everybody has known the site forever, as the sign states, it's 9 Acton Road, but when you actually look at the assessors, the legal address is 13 Acton Road. We all know it as, or remember it as, I don't remember it as the bowling alley, but that's what my parents call it to this day. I know, I'm sorry. It's been here forever. And essentially the building is paved to the east and west of both sides of the site. The site's just under 1.5 acres. There's a parking lot on both sides of the existing building. The existing building is 2 stories, actually 1.5 stories. You can kind of see the lower story out of the ground. And then an upper story. It's been most recently used, I think, as like a dance studio. I think there's been karate there at some point, some offices, etc. I believe right now it is empty. We've waited a little bit to come before this commission because we've been working through the planning board and the target's been moving every single meeting with the planning board. So we wanted to make sure we were in a fairly decent place before we came before
We're
you.
not gonna be that tough.
So we knew what our impacts were, right? Because this is the other side of the grist mill from Beaver Brook. The site, as I stated, has a large building there with a large parking lot on both sides of the building. Honestly, essentially anything we do there, I think, is a benefit to not only the brook, but the environment. And I think what we've chosen to do, which is seen even more by looking at the colored plan, is we've significantly reduced the amount of impervious surface on this lot. What we've proposed to do is 18 townhome units. If you'd followed along, this got a CVOD, or Center Village Overlay District, applicability a year or so ago during COVID for a 32-unit apartment building. At that time, that builder walked away. They weren't able to do it or decided not to do it based on economics. The developer or the client that I'm working for came forward. We proposed a 24-unit townhome plan. The planning board said, okay, but come back. We're not sure we like the number. We came back with 22. They said try 18, so this is 18. So we have an 18-unit townhome project. The units are 20 by 32. And you can see we're creating a significant amount of green space. The units are 3 stories tall, so we have parking in the first floor of each of the units, which is why we're able to limit the amount of impervious surface outside. And essentially we've created parking outside to equal, I believe we're up to 28 spaces outside to provide a secondary space for each of the units, and also some visitor parking within the parking lot. That entire new surface is being treated. Currently the parking lot that's out there today just sheet flows to the river. The parking lot pretty much is tipped from Acton Road down to the river, and the water just, it's basically the edge of the parking lot and goes right down into Beaver Brook untreated. There's no best management practices on site, there's no catch basins. Essentially there's roof drainage which collects the water, and it also shoots out to the brook. On site now. So what we're proposing to do is a fully compliant stormwater management system. Even though this is a redevelopment, we've proposed.
Could you slow down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. We've proposed a stormwater management system. There's a couple different treatment chains that we've proposed on site. Some of them include deep sump-hooded catch basins to an underground storm tech unit or an infiltration unit, which has an isolator row to make sure that we get 80% TSS removal. And due to the new phosphorus requirements of the town of Chelmsford, we also get infiltration in that, which helps meet our phosphorus requirements for the town of Chelmsford stormwater bylaw also. The other treatment chain essentially captures clean roof runoff and runs it to the front of the site, which we have some dry wells located under the grass area at the front of the site, which would infiltrate that stormwater. And then there's a third treatment chain that runs to a rain guardian turret, which is basically a best management practice, which helps us get 79% TSS removal prior to that stormwater going down into the buffer zone of the brook also. And that's all provided for you within the stormwater management report. We are in a riverfront area, so we've walked through the riverfront standards. As we stated previously, I think we're about 17,000 square feet less impervious, so certainly this is a better or improving the area pretty significantly just based on that. But we're also providing stormwater management for our new impervious surfaces. The site will be hooked to sewer because the CBOD applicability beat the moratorium. We do have the ability to tie into sewer, so there will not be a septic system on the site. New landscaping, lighting, sewer, water, electric, gas, all go into each of these townhomes on site. Like I said, we are in the planning board process because we no longer have Steve Yonley and Christina Papadopoulos. This was my first project that was sent out to Beta. We've worked with Beta pretty significantly all over the state of Massachusetts. They do a lot of peer reviews. What you're seeing tonight is what Christina and I usually kind of do behind the scenes. So you have a letter here that basically dictates, everything that Beta would require of us to meet the stormwater management bylaw of the town of Chelmsford.
So that letter we have is from your representative.
No, that's
No,
from Beta Group.
this is a peer review.
Peer review.
Who hired them?
We did.
The town of Chelmsford.
Did we vote to do that?
We did.
We did.
We did.
Where was I? Not paying attention.
We're on Twitter again.
Okay, all right.
So we also have a peer review that Beta Group did for the planning board, and we're working, essentially we got the planning board peer review right before the planning board meeting. We just received this peer review
So
on
have
Friday.
you gotten a copy of
I
it?
do, I have a copy of it. One of the things that we've been working with between the client and the property owner is trying to allow us to dig up the parking lot to do soil testing. Because this finally appeared in all these letters as an absolute must-do, we have permission to dig up the parking lot to do the soil testing Thursday. So we should be able to wrap everything up after Thursday's soil testing. So the majority of the comments I think in there, some of it is just kind of aggregating some of the materials we've already proposed and kind of putting it in a nice neat package, things relative to Riverfront, things relative to the operation and maintenance plan we've provided. They'd like us to provide a larger compost sock on site. Also, we met with David last week, and I have talked to our wetland scientist who's given us a proposal to do some invasive removal, which also showed up in the beta letter. There are some invasives, essentially right after the parking lot ends, as you get towards the brook. It's suddenly all invasives right there. And there's a couple of dead trees. I spoke with Greg Hockman via email. He's on school vacation this week. So he's been authorized to start basically an invasive removal management plan for an area that David and I talked about when we were out there in the field, and provide a new planting plan for those areas. One of the things we also talked about is the property line really ends. You can see where the color ends is where the property line ends.
Gristmill owns the other.
Can you?
Gristmill, yeah.
So none of the stream is on, your
No.
client does not own any of the stream.
That's
The
correct.
condos on the other side own the stream and land on your
On
side.
our side. Which
But
is,
you're gonna clean up the stream?
well, we're gonna try. So what I
You're gonna
talked
get
to
their
David
permission?
about was we're gonna speak to, I've talked to Phil Heliopoulos. Phil is the attorney for the project. He's had contact with the Prime Minute Association, in this town already, that's across the way there in the gristmill. They've been a part of the planning board process till now. He's gonna reach out to them and see if we could do invasive removal on their property, understanding that it's on the other side of the brook, and a planting
Yeah,
plan.
it probably doesn't do much good to do it on your side of the stream. and ignore the other side.
Well, we can do it, well,
It'll come back.
right, I mean, we can do it in this area here. We can do a significant amount of it, and there's a couple dead trees over there. Here is where kind of David and I spoke about when we were out there, so we're gonna try. We offered to try, I talked to Phil Eliopoulos today. He was gonna reach out to the association and see if we could get permission. Obviously, if we can't go off our property, but we will at least attempt to do it.
Do we still have an outstanding issue with the condo association on cleaning up their side of the street?
Yeah, nothing's been done out there at all.
What?
Nothing's been done
So
out
they
there.
don't have certificates of compliance, right?
I thought we did get a certificate of compliance with the
I hope not.
I
Nothing's
believe
been done.
we did. I
Or
believe we
when
did, but
it didn't go to the individual units, the COCs?
it would have, well, whatever was in there for conditions would have probably been perpetual, but it's.
Mark's referring to some discussions we had with the builder after the building was up.
Right.
No, I had discussions with him 3 separate occasions, during construction, halfway through and final. And he promised me all 3 times it would be addressed, but nothing's been done.
It might be, if we can figure it out, this is an opportunity, I think, to address both sides of the street.
No, we weren't going to the other side of the
You know,
street.
but it may be an opportunity somehow to do that.
But you're not proposing to go
We're
to the
not
other side of the
proposing,
street?
no, we're not
No,
proposing to go to
because
the
they
other
don't
side
want
of
to
the
spend
street.
the money.
I mean, this project is already, we had to provide the full pile out of the payment in lieu for affordable housing to the planning board. We have to provide the full sewerage fees to the town of Chelmsford to tie into sewer. There's a huge demolition job that has to be done here to take care of that, and we've been dropped to 18 units, so we are tight. We have offered to look into this, we have offered to do the plan and look at that. Our client has agreed to pay for that to be done, so we will do the best we can.
We know how to kill projects.
Well,
So your invasive plan will address behind your property up to the edge of stream, is that roughly what, or is it that limited area in the
If
middle?
we're given permission to.
that's the hope, yes.
I mean, this is a whole
Right.
nother owner here.
Right.
This
You
is
would-
where the vans are parked.
Your
Right.
desire is to do invasive management
Just here.
up to the edge of the street.
Right, on our side.
That's your, absent getting approval, you can do it on your, up
Correct.
to your property.
That's correct.
How many feet is from the property line to the stream? Do they own?
I mean, this distance here is 44 by 14, so this is 30 feet on our
30
side.
feet?
Yeah,
So about 30 feet they own to the stream.
right on this, right here,
And that's-
yeah, it's pretty, it's
Yeah.
fairly consistent in that. And so our buildings are actually, this is the existing building line here, and this is where some of the utilities are on the back of the building. So our decks essentially go to the edge of where the utility and the concrete and the pavement is at the back of the existing structure. That's why I did this overlay plan. I thought it was a little bit easier to see what was happening here. And you can see, this is the edge of pavement that exists there today here, and this is the pavement goes down into where the vans are parked here, and the pavement wraps around here. So we're providing significant new pervious area throughout. So what we'd like to do tonight is certainly, I wanted to make sure that the commission had this initial presentation, certainly find out if a site walk was something you would want to do,
I think a sidewalk's probably gonna be a good idea.
and then also just hear
You
the
won't be
initial
able to get in
conversation.
behind the house, the building.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can walk along the
It's pretty dense.
No, it's not, we walked it the other day, it was fine.
You couldn't walk down the street.
We could if we wanted to, we didn't, we just kind of wandered around.
I tried to the other day and I couldn't. Maybe it's because I'm old.
I agree. So, Katie, I have a question. So on your plan, did you say you own up to the dash line, which is the
No,
street?
the color,
You own, okay, all right.
just where it's colored in.
All right. Now, look, we can't hold them to work on somebody else's property if the other property doesn't give them permission.
Of course
so.
not. No, I understand that. I'm
We
just
have to
saying,
try.
we have an opportunity if we can get some people to work together to the benefit of conservation.
Sure.
Because that stream is a mess. It's also, what's the elevation there, Katie, from your property down to the stream? Is it about 10 or 15 feet?
No, it's not that much, I have.
I think it's probably the same on the other side of the street, roughly, so maybe even more on the other
I
side.
think they look higher on the other side, yeah.
Okay, let's see if we've got more questions from the commissioners here. Chris?
Yeah, no, my thing was gonna be, obviously, test pits. Once you guys get out there, it's gonna dictate what you can and can't do, so. And then what are you using for erosion? Just straw wattles and,
Beta Group asked that we use an 18-inch compost sock with a trenched silt fence behind it. So we're gonna be updating our details to that.
yeah, I'm fine.
And we'll move the erosion control out to wherever we end up doing invasive removal.
All right, good. Mark?
You mentioned test pits, are that to discover soil conditions, or you anticipate find something there
No, it's for the stormwater management system. What we need to do is determine what the soil texture is, and that establishes an infiltration rate for the soil, and also look for the coloration of the soil to figure out where seasonal high groundwater is, to make sure that the bottom of the system is 2 feet off of that. So what we've done to date is we've been incredibly conservative. We've used a really low infiltration rate and essentially used a really high groundwater just to make sure that when we finally got to this point, hopefully we'll be able to scale the project, the drainage system down rather than up. But as soon as we know Thursday, we'll adjust those numbers.
Okay, do you taking any trees out
For,
during construction?
no, but we talked about a couple of dead trees that were out there today. We talked about a couple that we actually were looking at saving and adjusting the fence. Let me go, there's a few along the fence, the new fence line that I think along here, and there's two. If you look at my erosion control plan, my demo plan, there are trees along there that we do have to adjust or take out. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6, and there's some along the front of the project. So along this line, so what we're doing is we're taking those trees out, we're reestablishing a stockade fence and reestablishing basically an evergreen buffer there for the Fitzgibbons that live to the west of us. But one of the comments, and we can adjust the fence, is down towards the frontage of the project. There's a 28-inch tree and a 30-inch tree that we're going to save. So we're going to work around that and basically pull the fence in and around those trees to be able to save those trees. So the trees that are gone are here. And then there's a couple on the frontage that we're gonna use. And then kind of in this area towards the back of the project, kind of after the existing pavement, there's a couple of dead trees that we'll identify when our wetland scientist goes back out there to take
Okay.
down.
You probably know, we really encourage, the board really encourages indigenous trees. Even if you don't take any down, we'd like to see any place you can put one, would be nice.
And that was, I believe, a suggestion too of Beta. We were talking about replacing the vegetation at the back with more of a shrub layer in the wetland area. But there's a pretty substantial landscape plan that we've done for the site to add significant landscaping throughout both trees and shrubs. So and we're going to make sure it's updated to make sure everything is native to the requirements. Yeah.
Okay. This is irrigated site, I imagine.
We haven't talked about it, but we haven't talked about it yet, so.
I'd like to see some water conservation thoughts in it, so, whatever goes. That's all I got for now.
Good, thanks, John.
Is it too early to talk about snow?
Actually, no, because what I've done is, so I tried to figure out what a good number was to put to it, right? Like, I looked all over the DEP website. I thought at some point there had been a study, and I'm looking at Chris, because I found a study that basically said, from the Lake Tahoe area, that basically said 20% of the paved or the plowed surfaces in an area for snow storage. And so that's what we've provided on this plan. What the planning board asked us to do was look at, so on the side here, the planning board actually asked us to take off, we had a path here for a future Center Village connection for the brook walk. We don't own past here to even get to the brook, so we left a public easement there. We kind of pushed everything over. The planning board asked us to stack all the snow basically on this line. That way it'll melt and end up in the drainage system. and be treated before it ends up in the brook. So there's areas that we've established throughout the project, which essentially is a 20% footprint of the paved surfaces that are going to be plowed.
Okay.
I don't notice anything in addition to that, would just be trucked off site.
Anything
Yeah,
in addition to
trucked
that
off
would have to
site.
come off site.
Correct. Yeah. All right, no, that's it for now.
Good. Okay, good. All right, Carl?
The only thing I'm thinking about is that, and you don't have a lot of the land that's there, but to Mark's point about the trees, I have a personal interest in looking at all the Norway maples that have infiltrated that corridor, which is where the rail trail is. They are just pushing into the rail trail, and when you see it in the fall, it's unbelievable how and 50 years from now, they'll be all the way down.
Yep.
And so, when you look at those trees, if you see Norway maples in your yard, take them out.
Yeah.
Take them out, get rid of them. But I'm looking at where this is, and it is on both sides. It depends on having the other party involved here, because I'm pretty sure there's a fair amount right in that area, having walked in that area. But other than that, yeah, we're gonna do a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll do a lot.
Good, all right, Bill. I think there was a question on that retaining wall in the back, more detail on that.
Yep, so it's only a 3-foot wall. It's tiny, just to kind of keep us from having to cut down and looking at any vegetation or getting any closer to the river. So what we provided was a Versalock wall or a block wall on the detail sheet, so I'm just gonna point that out to the peer reviewer.
All right. Now, Katie, you said you're not done with the planning board yet. What are the open issues with them? Is there anything going to change?
I think it's
It's gonna affect us?
just the beta review. So we're gonna update the drainage, we're gonna respond to all of the comments in a positive manner, make sure everything's updated on the plan. We've already started to update the plan and do the responses, preparing in attempts to resubmit Friday after the soil testing on Thursday. So we've tried to answer absolutely everything, and have it ready to go.
So your big things in test pits now.
And I don't think we're not, there's nothing for us to argue about, I don't think, so. I wasn't planning on just kind of pointing out the information and or reorganizing it or adding additional information.
Is these for sale condos?
They
Are
will
gonna
be
be
for
apartments
sale.
or
They'll
for
be for
sale?
sale.
So it'll be a maintenance,
There'll be a condo
condo
association.
association will take care of the operation and maintenance of the.
That's right.
Okay, that's it. Good, good. David?
So, Mr. Chairman, we have a couple representatives from Beta here. I would like them to run through the comment letter. Doesn't need to start at the beginning. Maybe you could start at page 3 under plan comments and recommendations. That would, I think, be extremely helpful.
Excellent, good idea.
But actually, before you get started, Laura, I do just want to clarify that Beta is actually they're doing sort of 2 categories of peer review. They produced 2 letters. One which I didn't forward to the commission, which was their peer review of stormwater management. The other, which is what you do have in front of you, is their review of the notice of intent for compliance with the performance standards for the Wetlands Protection Act and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw. So I just want to clarify that. I think that may have been a little bit confusing.
So it's not specific to the design of the system, right? You don't know the design yet.
For
You
this,
do the test pits. You don't know what you're up against yet.
right, we proposed something,
Yeah.
but essentially, what the beta letter says is we've used, a conservative infiltration rate based on a sea soil. They're mapped as an urban land with a D next to it and a B next to it, so we don't know what we're gonna get.
Right.
So we tried to just kind of play the conservative route in our design, so that after Thursday, I'll be able to put in, if we have more room to the water table,
Right.
great. If we have better soil, then great, we can apply a better inch per hour infiltration rate to our system, so, and adjust them that way. So that information is just still missing, so we'll
Right.
fill in the blanks and produce the sizing information there.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, Laura Krause from Beta Group. I'm a lead scientist with Beta, and Elise Tripp from our office is here as well tonight. So I can just walk through each comment. I don't know if you've all had a chance to read our letter. a lot of them are kind of general housekeeping type items, making sure everything is, like you have everything that you need to make your decision. First comment was related to getting the,
Where are you, please?
page 3. Starting at comment A1. So that comment was related to getting the existing conditions plan with the Mass Surveyor stamp, because that's how we know that the resource areas were located correctly and that they're tied to a property line. A2, depicting locations of construction, stockpiling, and staging, knowing where things are going to be stockpiled, so that you know where additional erosion controls may be needed to protect the resource areas during construction. A3, to put all of your local restricted buffers on the plans.
So I actually just have a question on that, Laura. So, and Katie could chime in on this as well. So the two wetland types of wetland resource area flags shown on the plan are, well, the MA, which I guess is the mean annual high water mark. So
That's correct.
That's the riverfront area, the start of the riverfront area. And then the WF flags are what? Are those BBW or
Those are
bank?
BBW, yep.
Okay.
Those are BBW flags.
So what about bank? Where is bank in there? Would that be equivalent to the mean annual high water mark in this case?
That's correct. And I can confirm that in writing too. I'll just double check with Greg, but that usually is coincident with the annual high. And so some of the things on your plans here, you'll see we've started to update. This is kind of an interim plan, just so we kind of show you where those buffers fell within the project site. And this is the floodplain elevation. At this end of the site is this dark line here. It's 141 at this end of the site, but it drops considerably as you get to this end. We just marked the 141 so you can see it's offsite.
A4 was related to the erosion control boundary. The way that it's shown now, it kind of comes across this driveway, but the saw cut line was down the gradient of it, so we recommended that the erosion control line go around that saw cut line. Note should be added indicating the date of the resource area delineation. Katie already talked about the purpose of that proposed easement for access down to the river. We were just unclear as to why that was on the plans. Mass DEP issued a file number with no comment.
Does that mean there are no comments?
Not necessarily, but they did not provide any, so sometimes
When
they
did we get the file number?
I do not know, do you know?
Do they have a certain amount of time to give us their comments?
I think things work quite differently here in the Northeast. In the Central District, DEP will issue comments at the same time they assign the file number. That apparently isn't the way it works here.
It used to be.
It used to be.
Yeah, things have been changing.
Okay, so hopefully we'll get them soon.
Or they might not issue any comments, which could
Well,
also.
I'd be a little bit surprised if they didn't, because I know that redevelopment of riverfront area has been a pretty hot topic there
That's true.
recently, so I am expecting comments.
Okay. A8, we talked about the 2 large diameter trees that sounds like we might be able to save, so that's great
Do you know-
news.
They're not knowing it.
I know that the one up front is not, if the one out back is, then take it out. You know, I didn't, I don't believe it was, but I can't picture the bark in my head right now, so. And then A9, recommend providing a detail for the retaining wall, just to make sure that for the footing of the retaining wall near Unit 3, there's not going to be any additional clearing during construction. Starting with resource area comments, just one. We weren't tasked with reviewing the boundaries on site, but we did look at them in the field and they looked good to us. But the LSF boundary wasn't depicted. It looks like they've already shown it, so that's great. W2 was related to providing some additional mitigation in riverfront area. I think, it sounds like we're on the way to coming up with a great plan to remove some invasives and put together a planting plan with native species. One thing that we noted while we were out there is that there's a large population of Japanese knotweed at the top of the hill, and it hasn't migrated downhill to the wetlands yet. So it seems like a really good opportunity to get rid of it.
How do you get rid of it?
A lot of excavation and a lot of treatment over a long time. W3, the landscaping plans, just recommending, native seed mixes where we can, maybe at the back.
Generally speaking, can I ask, Mr. Chair, can I ask questions of the applicant while she?
Yes. Yes.
Roughly what is the mature height of the trees that you're planting, generally?
To plant?
You've got, no, when they're mature, how tall will they be?
I'll have to
You've
look
got,
at it.
you've got the heights listed when you plant them, 5 and 6 feet, I
I
understand.
would have to, I don't know off the top of my head. We actually have a registered landscape architect.
Could you
that
just
does
ask?
that. Yeah.
I hope they're taller than 5 or 6 feet.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
And do we want to encourage wildlife? You're saying we should use grass seed that encourages wildlife?
Along the back, primarily pollinators. We're thinking more pollinator species
I
along
don't
the
think
back.
we want to encourage wildlife on Acton Road.
Sure. W4, we talked about increasing the size of the erosion controls. Sounds like that's not a problem for the applicant. The W5 was related to entrenching the silk fence. There was a couple of details on the plan set, I think on 2 separate sheets even, so just clarifying exactly what's being proposed for the erosion controls and having one detail. Landscaping plans, we talked about, have some non-native species as well as cultivars. We recommend true natives. We also talked about W7 is related to installing permanent limit of work markers, if that's something the commission often does. Because we're proposing restoration of the riverfront area, you don't want people going in there and thinking it's lawn or thinking it's a landscape area, so it might be a good idea
Yeah,
to
we
do
usually
some
like
kind of
that.
monumentation. Yep. W8 related to a couple areas of tree canopy where it's overhanging the building and overhanging the parking lot. We weren't sure if there was any additional clearing or limbing of those trees that was going to be needed. There's one that kind of really overarches the fence line, so that was something that we'd like the applicant to look at. And then W9 was related to some dead trees in this area over here. Along this retaining wall. There are a lot, and it is pretty close to the unit there, so in case they were planning on removing them, it might be nice to get some more trees in there, because they do provide habitat for
Katie, is that right-hand corner of the property, is that right up against Jack Hanley's property where the trucks are kept? Or is there
Yeah,
other,
it's the back of the gas
or is there other
station.
land in there? No?
No, it's the back of the gas station and the vans, yeah. It would provide better habitat for people who live there too.
It'll look nicer, yeah.
So I'll look at that.
Sure.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to understand the location.
Yeah, no, this is the access down, the vans are like literally right here. Like this goes downhill and then the vans start, and this is the back of the gas station, in the back of the container. It's kind of unsightly in that corner, to say the least.
We don't know if that company's planning to leave their trucks there.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
We hope not.
Sorry.
No problem. Riverfront area, comments.
Before you go over this,
Sure.
I'd just like to explain to this commission, we have very little experience in this commission in addressing riverfront area issues. So I'm gonna be looking at people like this to tell me what we should be looking for. The only one we've recently looked at was Jay's project across the street. And it didn't go very well, the project didn't go very well. But we, in our discussions, they moved the building back a bit, but I don't think it was more for flood than it was for riverfront. But anyhow, this project, this is gonna be a learning experience for us.
Well, we should have learned stuff across the
Okay.
center, but we didn't learn anything over there either.
Well, no, we didn't, so I said, we're kind of ignorant, and David brought it to my attention. This should be a classic redevelopment project if it's done right. When you look at what's there, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. So W10 was related to how they quantified the impacts that were on the WPA Form 3. Just wondering, they do quantify the total riverfront area on the site. And then they say that the existing alteration is a certain number, and then the proposed alteration is a smaller number, but it's all alteration. So I think maybe you're talking about impervious versus
It
impervious.
absolutely was, we did
Okay.
update that.
Okay. W11 was related to some clearing that's being proposed within the inner riverfront area, and that's right in the location of Unit 3 up to the retaining wall. Typically, clearing in the inner riverfront area is not allowed under the redevelopment standards, or you can't move closer to the river for the standards unless you provide restoration. And you're providing a larger buffer in other areas, and I think we have a good opportunity here to plant, along the entire back of the property, and it sounds like we might be heading in that direction.
So I think this is actually pursuant to what Dave just said. I think this one really deserves a little bit more clarification.
Sure.
Because that's especially where it says work should not be located closer to the river. So Laura, could you go to the plan and show where it's actually being,
Where it's closer to the river?
Closer to the river than existing conditions.
Right, so it's right here, there's an existing, the tree line kind of comes in like this, and you can see that here is the limit of the pavement, and then the tree line comes up to the pavement right here. So they're gonna be clearing to install this wall here, in order to meet those standards and provide mitigation in
And does the definition of project mean any part of the project or just buildings on the project? When it says,
terms of alteration.
when it says it can't be any closer,
Right, so it's talking about alteration and clearing
so
is.
it's anything.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
So I'd actually like to see that called out on the plans, Katie, where you're actually going closer to the river than the existing conditions.
Yes.
So that would be great if you could do that, because that then does explicitly bring 310 CMR 10.585 F or G into play.
Right.
And then if you could also call out, the square footage of, the closer encroachment versus the square footage of the actual restoration, just so that we can see that the numbers actually do comply with, I guess it would be 10.585 F in this case, since G pertains to off-site restoration. So is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear to me. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that before I move on. Great. All right, so W12 was related to whether or not the site fully meets the definition of degraded. There are portions of it that do, the pavement, the building.
What else is there?
The slope down to the river. That wouldn't meet that definition fully. So, and then related, these comments are all relatively related, but W13 it goes back to the requirement for a redevelopment project to improve existing conditions.
As I recall, I don't think DEP even came out and looked at the site that Jay's condo was on. They
Yes,
gave
she
us
did.
their, they
No,
did.
she did a couple of times, which was really unusual, and gave us multiple letters with multiple email interactions,
Well,
which
that
was
was
strange.
So can we expect that? Is it the, will it be
Depends
the
who
same?
gets it,
will be the
depends
same
who gets
person?
it to their desk. No, it depends
I'm
who,
curious if it
it
was
depends
now.
it depends whose desk it falls on, honestly. We got no comments whatsoever on Gristmill, zero, from what I can remember.
Which is, which is
There
amazing.
maybe was one or two,
Which-
but there was nothing. We go to do Gristmill too, and there was like a book.
Right.
And that's why we did, everything that we did was based
But
on.
when we got
DEP's
that letter
comments.
about the walkway being, although it wasn't in the project.
Right.
But she didn't want the walkway to be where we suggested it was gonna be or something, right?
Pedestrians and rivers don't mix, is what was said.
I mean, there's no question in my mind that this project, forget the economics and all that this project will improve the environment around that stream. So we've got to figure out a way to make sure that the case is as strong as possible, based on the facts.
And I think that you'd be covered under the redevelopment standards to approve the project under that, if they meet the standards by providing mitigation. So W14 was related to the buffers and showing that they meet your local performance standards fully. And it looks like that all of the buildings are within the existing built-out area.
But we're gonna have to waive the 50-foot no.
Right, but you will need to.
Is this for what, 44 feet?
There are 2 buildings or 4 units that touch into the 50, so that's correct.
Additional comments on the construction standards, we're recommending additional erosion controls, which we had already covered earlier in the letter, and then water conservation and how they plan to irrigate or not their landscaping. And that is our letter.
Well, thank you, Laura, we appreciate the thorough peer review.
Yes.
Very good.
Good job.
Excellent job. Let's see, David, anything more?
Does that,
No, I don't have any.
I'm sorry.
Dave?
No, that's why I try to sit as far away from everything. Does anyone know what was in the ground before that parking lot went in? Was that filled, or was that the way it wasn't perhaps on the other side of the stream, or was that just regular land? It looks like it was probably regular land, right? I don't know. You guys aren't old enough to remember what was in
Mr.
before.
Green would have been able to tell us.
I'm looking at Swenson and Grit Gibbs.
I'm looking at Swenson and Gibbs, right?
The side with the bowling alley was, I don't know what was there prior.
Oh, that's been there for years.
Yeah.
But where,
I was just wondering what you might
the other
find
side
in
of
the ground,
the
that's all.
stream,
No,
that
me
was
too.
filled.
I mean, the other side I had historic
State
pictures.
line was, they brought fill in.
So I knew.
Yeah, but you were surprised there was nothing on the other side, right? I think we were.
Well,
we were wrong.
the other side had been like dammed and made into a
Right.
pond adjacent to the railroad, so it was
I
like,
was
yeah,
amazed.
we were
I
like,
remember.
yeah, I didn't know. This side I don't have historic photos of.
Oh, okay, yeah, but not in our time.
So you guys don't know?
It was residential, I don't know if it was filled, you know, a long time ago.
David, anything more?
Other question, parking on the first floor, there gonna be drains there for oil and stuff? Or guys are gonna be changing the oil in their cars underneath the condos?
That can be
No.
an addition, yeah, to not do that, absolutely. That can be put into the condo.
Cause
I haven't
it's likely
proposed,
to
I
happen,
haven't
it's
proposed floor
likely to
drains
happen.
in the unit. I haven't proposed floor drains in the garages, and if there were floor drains, I'd have to go to a railroad separator into the sewer.
Some way we gotta address the fact, there's gonna be 3 or 4 guys that figure they can change their oil, right? And it's gonna slosh all over the place. Is there a stormwater management report?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you seen it? Ted?
Yes,
You have?
yes.
Have we don't, can you put it up so we can read it if we?
Well, it's in the link.
Oh, okay.
it's
Oh,
online.
with her
Yes,
package, it was part of her package?
That's right.
yes.
Okay.
What I did,
Obviously, you can tell I didn't read it, okay?
what I did forward to the commission was Beta's comment letter on the stormwater management, because you're still working on that.
Yep.
Right. So-
Right, but and when that's finalized, yeah, you can get that out to the
And
commission.
who did the stormwater management? You just told us earlier, didn't you?
On the peer review?
No, who did the report? The applicant.
Right.
But Christina didn't review it because she's not here.
Right,
Okay,
right, so
you got,
that,
you're
that's
the
why,
guy.
that's why Beta's doing that.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Good, and yeah, and then when the stormwater management report's updated, we'd be interested in that.
We can do a site walk on this?
Yeah, definitely sidewalk, sidewalk. And then, definitely continuance obviously as well too. So I would say probably do a sidewalk before we come back in.
Can we do it the same night or is the other one too long? Running Playground's the other end of the world.
Yeah, it's up in the north.
Yeah, that's all over on the other side of town.
And no challenge.
Gotta go through the road
Right, Bill? Yeah.
with lights.
That's right, God's country, yeah. This is a public hearing, do we have any public questions, comments, anyone here? Maybe they asked them all on planning board. Yeah, so we're looking, our next meeting's May 10th, so we'll be looking for a continuance to May 10th. We should do a sidewalk before then as well too. And anything else?
Is there, it's not readily seen on the plan, is there some kind of fence to prevent residents from walking down to the stream? Or are they gonna be allowed to?
Well, it'll be,
It'll
it'll
be
be,
rough,
it'll be
it'll be
rough.
natural, it'll
Be
be.
rough, yeah, but
Right.
somebody will figure out a path, but,
Yeah, no, you can definitely walk down there if you want to.
okay.
Good. Anything else?
Just a question, Laura. So, is it reasonable to, have responses? In other words, a new draft of the letter with responses, point by point by the next meeting, or?
When will we have materials to review?
The
Okay.
hope is Friday.
Okay, and then the next meeting is,
May
May
10th.
10th.
we should be able to do that.
Okay, that would be great, yeah, if you could have the responses, the status.
Katie, how many holes are you doing out there, and whereabouts?
Gosh, I think it's 4, and if you look, if you can pull, could you pull the plan up a little bit, just so I can see the front?
Is it where the infiltration stuff's?
Yeah, it's in the footprint, it has to be within the footprint, so there's a couple, the building is here, so there's a couple over here, and I believe there's a couple over here to capture that. That's what I was saying, we have to dig up the parking lot to do it.
One question, what is that structure between unit 7 and 6, going up to the back?
7 and 6, but
The down,
No, I think you just talked about the riprap.
right there.
The turret?
Oh, is that a riprap?
oh, this is the riprap swale, so
Oh.
this is the ring guardian at the
Okay.
top, and it's a riprap swale down, so. One question I have, if I may, just because I'm updating the plans, is what the commission would like to see, if you would like to see a demarcation at the back of the property, I want to make sure that's included in the plans.
What do you mean by demarcation?
Well, Beta had suggested we put a marking along the back of the property to kind of keep
Signage?
people
Yeah,
from
you mean a physical,
a physical marking, whether it be a sign or, we
Yeah,
did a
over
posted
what,
rail on the
at the
other
pro- at the
side,
property
the
line?
plants.
at the property?
No, probably at the limit of work, because we're gonna do some restoration.
I'd like to see something like that.
So I just wanted to get an idea from the board what that should be, so that we can update it onto plans. I'm not
Put in
sure that
plans,
there's
we
something
need it.
Is
standard.
it gonna be permanent, or just while you're during construction?
No, it would be something for after construction,
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
people from
yeah.
mowing.
Yeah.
So just a real estate marker, right? Some kind of a,
Well, so, yeah, I'd rather see
Someone
like native
explains
plants.
to people that it's conservation.
Yeah.
But if we did a little sign on the post that just said restoration or something.
Yeah.
You might want a couple. but
Yeah, that's what I mean,
but
yeah.
Like every 50 feet, is that possible?
Yeah.
Gonna say restoration area?
Excuse
What are
me.
people gonna take from that? What are people gonna take
with an arrow on it?
to that one? What is it?
Say,
Yeah,
you know,
Here is an opportunity to clean up Beaver Brook.
Well,
I hope we
maybe,
do-
I mean,
I hope we do
personally,
it
I want
right.
native plants or something, so there's a transition.
I mean, we definitely do, I mean, it'll definitely be a newly planted area, but I think maybe a couple of signs that say maybe restoration. or
Wouldn't hurt.
Cross or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt, yeah.
We can talk, I can talk with Beta about the
Yeah.
language so that it's not crazy long on the sign.
Katie, how far up the other side does the Hirstone land go? It goes to a piece of land that they gave to the town, right?
Oh, that way?
Yeah.
I
Can
think
you-
that's, I don't know. I
They
can-
originally
I can
had
put
a
it
big
on
piece
there.
and then they seeded a small sliver at the
It was like
far end up on
2
the,
acres, I think,
yeah,
that way.
up by the,
that's where the bridge
I
is
don't know where the
supposed to
line
Trail.
falls, I could overlay it onto this plan so you could see it.
does the Center Village Master Plan anticipate some kind of a walkway on that side?
Yes,
Where?
that's a good question.
There's more land on the other side.
Right, and there's already a walk on the other side.
Yeah.
But I think that the plan was to
That's
have a
not
walk
really
on
what they-
both sides. Well, it's funny because we went in with a walk to here and basically said to be continued, and the planning board was like, why is there a walk there?
No, the
Just
problem,
to
the
do
problem
it
with the
all
walk
for
on
now.
this side is upstream, it's really floods,
Okay,
like
so
5X.
because the bylaw because the planning board, the
Yeah.
Center Village overlay requires us to give pedestrian access, we're just gonna leave an easement there and then it can be figured out. When the plan is modified.
All right, well, good. Could we have a motion then to continue to May 10th?
Does everyone know what they're, you know what you gotta get and everything? Okay.
It's a safe one.
We need to
You
get a
gotta tell
sidewalk
us.
schedule.
Yeah, you gotta tell us.
Can we do it on the same as the other one?
I would say we do it the same, what night, do we have a night for that other sidewalk?
We're generally gonna do May 3rd.
May 3rd, why don't we do it May 3rd?
What time?
Fine.
Well,
Gotta be earlier now, because then you gotta drive,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to drive through commuting traffic to get back down here.
so maybe 4 at Barney.
I gotta do it after hours.
Okay, so 5.
Yeah, we will, yeah, 5:15 or something, yeah, I'm still going, strong.
Okay, so 5 at Barney and 6.
So 5, yeah, like, why don't we do like 5:15 or something, Barney, we can pick these guys up, Barney will be, it should be 30 minutes, the tops.
It'll take probably longer to get there than.
Yeah.
Six
Yeah, well, yeah,
fifty,
yeah,
it starts getting back down here.
Yeah,
What date is that, May what?
Maybe 3rd.
so maybe, maybe 6 o'clock,
6 p.m.?
yeah, 6 p.m. Well, can't get back down to sun, okay, good. So we got a motion to continue,
Move.
moved by Bill, seconded by Mark, all those in favor? Aye, none opposed, very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on the agenda, we move into our discussion phase of the agenda. We have an item here as far as amending the Willis Drive and 6th Avenue Conservation Property Land Use Regulations to allow temporary storage of rafts. We discussed this last time back on 3/15/22, and so I don't think we didn't take a vote that day, right?
No, because nobody had hard copies, and I believe you've all had them, right?
Right, I think everyone's seen that document. It looked good to me. I don't know if anybody had any problems, but Dave, you want to take us through that again?
Sure. The idea was to allow a raft or dock no greater than 15 by 15 feet to be stored on the property from December 1st to March 31st. And you remember the raft that was in question was 10 by 10. So I mean, we could make it 10 by 10, but I figured we ought to make it 15 by 50. It isn't that much bigger. That's all the rest of the bylaw, all the rest of the regulation remains the same. I reorganized it into permitted uses and prohibited uses before they were kind of interspersed between each other. But the only change is to allow that a raft. It doesn't say 1, it doesn't say 85. I mean, we could say 1, but then we got to get involved in who's got first dibs, right? I haven't had any comments from the public on this. I don't know whether anybody else has.
I think it's good, Dave. I mean, anyone's got an issue with it, or question? I say we take a vote and approve it, you know? We always amend it, you know, if we need to later in the future.
Okay, I move that we adopt an amendment to the Chelmsford Conservation Land Use Regulations for Willis Drive and 6th Avenue on map 18, block 41, lot 23, and to allow the storage of rafts no larger than 15 by 15 feet to be stored on the property between December 1st and March 31st.
Thanks, Dave. Motion by Dave McLaughlin. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Bill Vines on the second. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thanks, Dave.
Now we can expect to hear from Mrs. Farrell.
All right. Next item under discussion is reservations to be designated as wildlife refuge. We talked about this back on March 15th as well. And then, I don't know if everyone's copied, but there were some emails going back and forth after that last meeting, kind of around the identifying certain properties as being town-owned properties and other properties being conservation-owned. And I know there's some research done by, I think, Paul Cohen, maybe someone in the tax office, I think. And, and then you did research.
I've been doing some of my own. Yeah, for instance, up near Riverbrook Meadow, River Meadowbrook.
Yeah.
That actually isn't conservation land. It never was, as far as I can tell, it never was turned over to the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission. So that's something that.
Even if it isn't, we could still designate it as a wildlife refuge.
Unless the select board have different ideas.
If we're gonna wait to do this, we won't be addressing this for another 3 years. Because it'll take that long to resolve the issues that Dave's uncovered. If they're issues. We have to determine first of all, are they an issue? And if they are, how are they, which ones have to be corrected and which ones don't have to be
I
corrected?
mean, because some of the issues may have to go back to town meeting.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line, is that it needs to go back for another town meeting vote to turn it over to the Conservation Commission, and I think that'd be well worth it to do it for these important areas.
Well, it's work you're gonna have to do, so.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it'd be great, David, if you could follow up on that, and we'll track that with the commission, but there's certainly these important properties that, particularly ones we thought were conservation land, that we wanna make sure, 50 years from now, or 25 years from now, whatever, it's conservation land.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, the issue is, I guess if it's legally not conservation land, the town could sell it easier
yeah.
than it could sell conservation land. It's not that they can't sell conservation land, but it's extremely, much more difficult.
Or I think maybe the bigger concern that rather than it be sold is that it's something, a non-conservation use should be done there. So, putting up an athletic field or doing something like that, I think that's the greater concern.
Well, somebody doesn't know something. That's what I'm concerned about. Because we've been doing this for all the time. All of us have been on it. Once a year, almost once a year, there's been a warrant article that conveys land to the Conservation Commission. But that's not what David is talking about. David's talking about, I think you're talking about technicality, legal language is different than just what I said.
Well, I'm talking about land that if you go to the town meeting vote, land was acquired for general municipal purposes.
Right, see those are the votes that don't exist at town meeting. What does exist is a warrant article saying this parcel is deemed to be, I don't know what the language is, conveyed to. That's not the language.
We wanna make sure, it's the right language.
Right, but it will have to be another warrant article.
Yep.
Had the right language been put in at the time the parcels were acquired, another vote wouldn't be needed. But now another vote is needed for some of it.
Is there another requirement beyond, or another step, I should say, once we have an article that gets voted on and approved, is there another step, like a legal step or something?
Well, in my opinion, and in every other town I've dealt with this issue, that something then gets recorded at the registry, whether it's a certified copy of the town vote. I know that there's some other ideas. Some of the town councils that I've worked with in other towns have suggested some other things to do. I think there should be something that gets recorded as a permanent record.
With the deed?
I mean, if it's just transferred, then there is no new deed.
Right.
But there should be a record of the vote or something like that.
Linked to the deed?
I mean, as long as it gets recorded, then, that's good enough. Now,
When you say the registry, you mean the registry of deeds?
The registry of deeds.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, I don't think it'll ever happen here, but in one town I worked in where the town got a federal grant to preserve land, and one of the parcels that was involved there was some general municipal purpose land. In that case, the federal government actually did want a deed from the Board of Selectmen to the Conservation Commission.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think, we're not talking about that here, we're just talking basically about a record of the vote.
David, have you discussed this issue with Paul Cohen and/or John Souza?
Not yet, no, but I'm planning to.
I think we need, that discussion should happen and then a report back to us. I have no idea what the magnitude of this problem is.
Yeah,
I have none at all.
Yeah.
It may not be a problem, it may be a huge problem.
So let's, I say we, David, why don't you follow with John and with Paul Cohen, and then we'll report back on it the next meeting, the 10th. Let us know what if anything we have to do, you know? And then Dave, to your point about wildlife refuges, I mean, we don't wanna wait years to name, you know, parcels a wildlife refuge, so something to think about is.
Naming something a wildlife refuge is not legal, in the sense that we're doing something legally.
Right.
If a piece of land that is not conservation land was deemed to be wildlife refuge by us,
Yeah,
and then subsequently the town said, I wanted the land for a ballpark,
yeah,
then it would come out, it would no longer be called a wildlife
right,
refuge.
right.
You take the sign down, that's
Take
about
the
it.
sign down.
Yeah,
It's,
so, I mean, I think it'd be, if we have a property that we think should be, you know, a really good location for a wildlife refuge, say we make that recommendation.
The only reason I suggested these two spots, remember, one is off of Smith Street.
Yeah,
Nobody's walking in there anyhow, because it's water and swamp. And the one on Riverneck Road's the same way, it's landlocked by major roads. And so the only people that are in there now it was probably people eating lunch at Mercury Computer and or maybe some residents, Carter. Well, it'd be neighbors, you know, Carter Drive and Don Drive, maybe Riverneck. The kids some dirt bikes, but you're always gonna have that.
Well, and the thing about that is that is priority habitat, that has been
Well,
designated by the state.
That's the other reason I added, when I was thinking about this, the turtle situation led me to believe, well, maybe that area should be a wildlife refuge, that's all.
so maybe it's us taking a vote that we recommend that it be deemed a wildlife refuge, and then we take that to the selectmen and have them endorse that, you know?
Yeah, there, remember, I included some regulations, a regulation there, to a regulation. All I did was take our existing regulations and said the only permitted use in the wildlife refuge would be walking on existing trails, that would be trails that people have created, not new trails. And allowing motorized devices by the mobility impaired. Not likely, but those are the only two. Everything else would be prevented. So if you look at our standard use regulations, it's that list with those two exceptions being allowed. Everything else is the same.
Yeah, do you want to make a motion tonight, or have us kind of think about it till our next meeting, you know, the 10th? Think about it today?
I'd just like to add,
I would like him to talk to Paul first
First?
before we flow it. It's only another 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, I think, you know, with regard to River Meadow Brook, I think the commission really should be thinking in terms of having a warrant article at this fall's town meeting and turning it over to the commission. And I will speak to
All
Paul
right, so
about that.
let's
I like
get.
that, I like that.
Let's verify that hasn't legally happened.
Yeah,
Along with
And then I will
With
do that.
the discussion with Paul, and then if that's the case, we'll at least do that one. If we're gonna do that one, we might as well do, I don't know what the status of Smith Street is.
yeah, let's do both. Sound good, everyone?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, good.
How many,
So
how many
we'll defer
are
this.
in question?
What's it?
How many are in question?
That's a good question. I'm still looking into that. I'll continue the research and, you know,
We start with the start with our 11 reservations first. Then there's some other land outside of our 11 reservations, but those tend to be minor parcels. But I'd start with the ones that we have designated by name as a conservation.
So I think you mentioned one time it was over 1,000 acres of.
Yeah, but that includes both kinds of lands, right,
I
right.
understand.
There's 750
really
odd
important,
acres,
yeah.
it's probably over 800 now with more Paul, of acreage that is designated by us as a conservation reservation. The rest, the other 300, are miscellaneous parcels here and there that we don't do much of anything with.
But
So
you want to protect those? Is that what?
Well, I think if they're called conservation land, yes.
no matter how inconsequential they are, they're gonna be
Right.
protected.
Remember now, and occasionally during the year, someone will come to us and say, does conservation want this piece of land? And we've said no
Right.
on a few occasions.
Yeah.
And the thing we look for is, we look to acquire land that may abut existing land use, because we can put them together, as opposed to some isolated half-acre piece in Lord knows where.
There's a few of those on the lake in Chelmsford.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
So it's my recommendation, Chris, that we direct the conservation agent to have the discussion with Paul Cohen and anyone else. It's
Yeah.
probably Jack Souza, and it may be Paul Haverty, but certainly start with.
Yeah.
And then, based on what he tells David, we'd look at our next meeting to adopt these two parcels as
I like that. Yeah.
as well
Okay,
as.
so, yeah, I'll focus on these two for the next meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that there is a larger, potentially a larger concern.
And we wanna like, get that straightened out now,
Absolutely.
if it's a problem.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, let's see. Next on the discussion items, unleashed dogs, cranberry bog reservation.
Okay, let me bring that email up. Okay, so did everyone have a chance to read that email? Looks like there was a bit of a problem there.
So I know that there is a sign, at least on the side coming into Carlisle. I don't know about, the kiosk.
Well, it's in the regulations
It's in the
itself,
regulations.
but it's one of 15.
Right.
The one you're talking about is, I think, a separate sign about leash dogs, right?
Yeah, because Carlisle's got a different requirement. They allow
Yeah, that's
dogs
right.
under-
Carlisle has no leash law, so people from Carlisle who walk their dogs into Chelmsford very often don't have them leashed.
Yeah, well, I would say there's a lot of Chelmsford people in that.
Well, because they hang around, right, on Sunday morning.
So I don't know whether it's a matter of putting up additional signs. Signs quite frequently are stolen.
Do we know if the letter came from a Chelmsford resident or a Carlisle resident?
That's a good question. We've
Not
always
sure
encountered
yet.
unleashed
It
dogs.
makes a difference, I think,
Mm.
to me at least. If it's a Carlisle resident, then we've got to go to Carlisle and say, hey, you've got to help us address this issue.
But I think the issue happened here in Chelmsford.
You're right, I think it did. It did happen in
So
Chelmsford.
I don't think it matters where the person's from.
But, I mean, the option is to put some more signs up, I guess. And maybe we,
That doesn't work.
that might not really help.
The option is to encourage the people who do it to keep their dogs under control.
Yeah.
And if that means a leash, that means a leash. We've had one of our former members had a problem with her dog being off leash and causing problems. And that was it, she didn't have her dog on a leash.
But how do you enforce it?
Yeah, there's only one way to enforce those things, David, and we don't want, and you don't want police out there, right?
No, we don't want David out there on patrol.
I think, maybe we can,
Yeah,
we can,
patrol officer, yeah.
once Dave gets control of our webpage, or whatever it is, we could put something up there in bold letters that says, reminds people that Chelmsford has a leash law, and that applies to all property in town. I mean, technically, dogs in the cranberry bog should be on a leash.
But we could do a referral at some point to the animal control officer. He could make an appearance.
I know they've got not enough to do.
Scientist, Michael, maybe.
Yeah.
But you don't know who or she's gonna make an appearance to, that's the problem. I mean, these incidents probably happen deep in the cranberry bog, they're not happening in the parking lot.
All right, so I think we discussed it for now. All right, next up, clear cutting.
Why don't we,
Okay.
there may be a couple of signs floating around downstairs that say, that reminds people to keep their dogs on leash.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
We could
a
put
couple
another
of
one
signs
up
there.
in our parking lot,
Yeah,
on Elm Street.
Right at the fire gate.
it wouldn't hurt,
Yeah.
right? It wouldn't hurt. We try it, see what happens, you know?
So
Anybody object to that?
I can go with you and take a look and see what we got. and
Try another
I
sign,
can
sure.
put one out there.
Good.
Trouble is, if there's one, you won't be able to find it, right? If there's half a dozen, you might find it, but downstairs.
All right, let's try that then. All right, so was the unleashed dogs, clear cutting. Clear cutting, priority habitat at Meadowbrook, electric distribution. David, what's going on with that?
Okay, so that's up in the area we were just talking about. I think I did forward a couple of photos a few weeks ago where the commission's peer reviewer for the wetland delineation up there noticed that there had been some clear cutting actually in the wetlands. They actually, plowed right through the wetland flags. It looks
This
like.
is letting National Grid clear the land under their, in their easement, I think, is that?
Yes, yeah, that's where it was done, was in the easement. It looks like there's one, possibly two vernal pools up there. I was out there with the folks from Zoo New England last Thursday, and yeah, it's been clear in some areas. It's been clear cut.
We have
quite
a good contact at National Grid?
Yes, I believe I do. I've been holding off calling him for a couple of reasons.
And you said they apparently have a reputation
It was just in
of
there.
ignoring these kinds of things in other towns, so.
Well, and I don't know whether it was a contractor that did it or not. I think if the commission really wanted to, the commission could take an enforcement action. I think maybe it might be a better way, at least, to try to handle it differently. So I've been waiting for the wetland flags to be restored, and waiting for the plan from the restoration planting plan from Zoo New England. I also got a proposal from, which I think I forwarded to the commission members, from Oxbow Associates to certify those two vernal pools. So what I would like to do is I would like to approach National Grid and ask them to fund the planting plan and the certification of the vernal pools, in hopes that maybe in the future they can work a little bit more sensitively, tread a little bit more lightly in this area. I've also spoken to a senior biologist in natural heritage who I think is going to be willing to help out. Again, I don't want to lower the boom on National Grid at this time. I'd like to try working with them, see if they're willing to cooperate.
Didn't they promise you that they would have a liaison that would get back to you at least once a week on progress
On
when you're doing clear cutting, or?
I mean, they were here like a couple months ago.
Yeah, they were just here.
that was for
That's a different project.
that was a notice of intent, for doing some soil borings in the big transmission line. And actually, now that you mention that, we did recently get a notice this week that work will be starting soon. And so, there are some pretty specific requirements in the order of conditions for, daily status reports.
But that's not what David discovered.
No, but maybe it's a leverage opportunity.
Right.
Right.
I think what David
Exactly.
has discovered is, this is kind of normal maintenance that National Grid does in their
They're
easements.
coming
Well, I
down
think-
Smith Street.
I'm sorry?
They're coming down Smith Street soon.
Yeah.
They're gonna clear cut there besides under the power lines, starting at,
In your backyard.
all the way up, well, to West Chelmsford.
But that's part of the project, I think, that we approved this fall. That's not normal maintenance. But still, they're supposed to tell him if they're in sensitive areas.
I guess what I'm getting at, they should have somebody that gets back today where they are and what they're doing.
Well, absolutely, and I've gotten a couple names so far.
I think his suggestion is the right one, is put together a package of information, including the pictures and locus and maps, and go meet this guy and say, hey, we understand you need to do maintenance under your easements, right? We understand that. But you gotta understand where we have concern about work in sensitive
No, I get it.
areas. And here's an example.
Right.
And we want you guys to, and then we want you, one, to stop, and two, we'd like you to help us make some restitution, a la whatever the pros.
Right, right, and the commission does not want to take a formal enforcement action.
At this time.
Right, so hopefully, that can, you know, create a good working relationship to correct this issue and
Good.
not have it happen again, so.
So let's, I'm in favor of authorizing him to do that, okay?
Good, all right, so moved by Dave, we get a second on that?
Second.
Seconded by Mark, all those in favor? Aye.
Dave, are we gonna see something from Zoo New England on the wood turtle habitat thing? Is it-
Well, I think we got the last,
Are they the
report.
ones, are they gonna give us this plan that we're gonna give to the town of Chelmsford for the sidewalk project? Is that the source of the turtle protection plan?
Well, that's one source, but I think, my understanding, I can double check with them, my understanding though is that their most recent multi-year study finished up last year, and they sent, and they did send me the report. I'm just
Right,
forward
yeah,
it
no,
to
we
you.
have the report,
Yeah.
but it didn't include a turtle protection plan.
No, that's still a part of the filing.
Right, because where the town wants to put the replication area for floodplain is in the general area of the wood turtles, but it's not in the specific area where Zoo New England did their work.
Right.
And, and the letter we got from Natural Heritage suggested that we require the applicant, in this case the town, to submit a turtle protection plan for the area where they're gonna put their, flood compensation area.
If National Grid agrees to it.
Well, is that the same place?
Yeah.
Yeah, same place.
All the same place.
How can you give somebody in an easement area, an area that's gonna be protected, when you know they're gonna go through it? That's part of their easement, they have to go through it.
Yeah, I know, but they have to follow other laws too, Mark. So it's got a homeowner, you have an easement, you're still
Yeah, but
responsible.
you're designating an area for turtles.
Yeah, but you would do that if it were a private homeowner too.
But these, I understand, but they need this area, that's why they're taking it.
That's right, but that doesn't mean they can do whatever they want there. There are other laws and regulations that apply, I suspect.
Destroy it.
I mean, they couldn't put asphalt down, could they?
Well, and they have,
I didn't realize that, David. I didn't realize that the turtle protection plan area is the same area that they've been destroying.
Yep.
Whatever it is.
Yep.
That makes it even more severe.
and they have an MOU with Natural Heritage.
Because how are we gonna get it? If we end up discussing it with them for a year and a half, we're not gonna get the turtle protection plan from the town.
Well, they might not agree to allow the compensatory flood storage there at
That's
all.
the issue that John raised, and that may make the whole argument moot.
Well, with regard to that issue,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make the argument moot that they disturb priority habitat.
No,
when they should not
that
be
in and
able
of
to do that.
itself is a separate issue, I agree.
So, anyway, that's,
Okay, we'll start.
I'll see what kind of
Yeah,
progress.
we'll
I
start
can make.
informally,
Yeah.
and then we can go,
Did you meet Brian from the zoo?
Yes, yep, Brian and Julie Bliss.
anything more on turtles?
May I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure, go right ahead.
He's the turtle expert, or it's in his family.
Yeah, I was number 2 or number 3 in that. The question is then the
Mr.
clearing.
Lewis, what's your address for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I can come up.
Come on now, come on. Okay,
My name is Joel Luna, 10 Carter Drive. The clearing that occurred, was that part of their normal clearing that they do, I think, on some sort of periodic basis, or was it associated with the substation when they, because we just recently received letters that they were going to be doing work along the transmission lines connected with the station that's on 110. That those lines then go through this whole area.
Well, this is not a transmission line, this is a distribution line, so I don't think that what they did here pertains to what you just described.
Remember, you just heard us talking about two issues?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
one of the issues is the one you're talking about. That's the one we acted on this fall.
Yeah, the main area I'm asking about is that sandy area that you access going through the water district. That
Yes.
then enters into that large area, those transmission lines through there.
Yes.
Yeah, and so is the clearing that you were talking about, that area, first of
Yes.
all? And was that part of their sort of periodic clearing that they do for?
Well,
or was
yes, just nominally it is, but they took down some pretty mature trees. So, I mean, it looks like it's something that they haven't, in certain areas, that they haven't done in 15 or 20 years. So what Zoo New England is suggesting, well, we'll prepare a restoration planting plan where they don't have to go in and cut big trees like that.
Okay.
That it will require minimal maintenance to keep it basically open, basically in shrubs, which will be good not only for turtles but some other species as well. So ultimately, that's the desired goal.
And are they going to be doing additional work in relation to the substation work?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. That's what
We
we were assuming that because.
We did have a hearing last year on, this is the substation at 110 by the theater.
Yeah.
We did have a hearing on that last summer or fall, but that was separate from the transmission lines going through the whole town. But
Yeah.
they were gonna do some work out there that we approved.
Yeah, the spot was very close, the substation is like on 110, like I said, near the ball fields. I can't place it exactly, but those lines run across through this area. And so, since they were working on that, we got a letter that you're gonna anticipate seeing people in the easement areas and stuff like that. We assumed they'd be working through that whole area. If they're, we didn't really actually know what the work they was.
Could you send me an email? I'd like to get a better idea of the area you're talking about. In particular, I'd like to know whether that's also priority habitat.
It is.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then
This
that's,
easement that cuts across where Dawn and Carter Drive meet, and then it runs parallel to Dawn Drive.
That's where Zoo New England did their.
Yeah, that's where Zoo New England did all of their.
so they haven't started that work yet?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay, because that's certainly something that I will speak to the contacting National Grid, treat that area a little bit better than you did this other area.
Yeah, we were also concerned about it because we thought that in general, work in the habitat area should occur outside of the April to October timeframe, because that's when they're active.
Right.
And particularly to be there in early June and then in August is especially bad because
That's
of
the exact wrong time.
the nesting.
You should, Mark, if they're gonna be in your backyard, it's gonna be at that time too. And you get snapping turtles climbing through your yard, right?
I do.
All right, yeah, we'll be in contact about that.
Great.
We were just, that's the reason why I'm here, so we're concerned about that.
That's good enough.
All right, thank you, that's it.
So hi, Ruth, kids.
Yes. They are like,
Saw them somewhere, I forget, but yeah.
All right, let's see. All right, Oddfellows, David, anything on Oddfellows?
I've been monitoring it very closely. Just from time to time, I do have to tell them, shore up the erosion control or whatever. But they're doing a good job. They're doing everything I'm asking them.
Good.
We're still gonna see a site plan?
I don't know.
I'm sorry?
I don't know.
This has been questioned every meeting for the last 6 months.
Well, yeah, there was a story in the paper.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
I mean, it was was an artist rendition, but it definitely did look like there was some
Yeah,
additional
got the picture.
work that was planned.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, that's the problem.
Well, let's get a request out to them that we would like to see, you know, it could, you know, it could be just a couple pages, but some sort of a brief plan.
It's amazing how, what kind of blocking we're getting from downstairs.
On what?
Getting a site plan for the Oddfellow Hall, the site work there. We haven't seen it, we saw it once when it was approved, I'll put that in air parentheses, and that's the last time we saw one. Do you wanna see one?
So who's downstairs?
Redevelopment?
So let's ask Kevin for it.
Okay.
We could always raise a big stinking issue of cease and desist until we hear.
Yeah.
We need to understand, I'm a little confused because everyone else has a different set of understandings than I think we do. That's what's a little bothersome.
Well, what I can do is I can dig out the notice of intent plan, the plan that was approved,
Sure, that's all I wanna see.
and I can talk to the owner and say, is this what you're gonna do, are you planning any changes to this plan?
Well, I would assume the one that was signed off is the one that they're gonna have to follow unless they make
Right.
changes with it.
Right.
The only possible changes might be the outside parking. Because remember, they've carved this lot up into 4 lots now?
Yeah.
So the lot where the Oddfellows is might be different than the lot. What did we see? We saw the whole lot? Or did we just see the parking lot in the Oddfellows?
I don't know.
When Jay came before us? No, it had Fisk House in it. So we didn't, I think we saw parking lot, Oddfellows and Fisk House as one parcel. And then, of course, Santana was there, was part of it, but everyone knew that wasn't part of the project. And then they took those 3 with Santana, and they've now configured 4 lots. Sold one to the guy who's building Oddfellows. The town apparently is gonna make a bid on the parking lot. Santander is privately changed hands privately. And the original guys, I think, still own Fisk House, and they're gonna do something with that. So, if there is a change, it would be whatever the lot was. I don't think there's any changes in the building.
No, I don't suspect that either, I just wanna see what we approved.
Yeah.
All right, let's get some documentation of the next
Yeah,
day.
yeah, I'll dig that out.
Yeah. All right, good.
I don't know what you said. I think it's not gonna look nice. They actually put gray siding on it today.
Oh, I'm not trying to throw a monkey.
No, I know you're not.
I just wanna see,
Yeah.
Let's get some documentation.
that's all.
No, that'll be a good exercise for me.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet.
Exactly.
Even Brook's not gonna be the same by the time he's finished, the guys across the street are finished.
Things are coming right along. All right, so, land management now, land management. Land management, all right?
David, you wanna talk about the,
Dave?
Sure, so, I think we're getting closer to the work on the driveway and parking area starting. Before that can happen though, is the erosion control that needs to be installed.
What do you mean closer? Are you actually seeing work?
No, not quite, haven't gotten that far yet, but I met, last week on site with, Scott Ludwig and, S&M Farms, who does erosion control. So I'm waiting for a proposal from them for the
get them to
installation.
move,
What's that?
you get them to show up.
Yes, yep, they showed up. They need the erosion control line delineated first. They need that staked, which Scott says he will do. And then the trees need to come down first, or it's better that they come down first before the erosion control is installed, otherwise it can get whacked. So, you know, in terms of trying to come up with a time estimate, I'm hoping within the next couple weeks that the erosion control can be installed and then the work can actually begin. Then, of course, that's subject to, you know, how busy the DPW is and that sort of thing. But at least if it goes slowly, at least it's, you know, making some kind of
I'd like to see a shovel in the ground as well.
I'll take the
I'm
erosion control.
surprised, you all realize that this is one of the specific objectives in Mr. Cohen's plan, personal plans with the Board of Selectmen for this fiscal year, which was Warren Pole parking lot. And I don't see that it's gonna make it, it's gonna be done by June 30th, I would guess, if he's gonna meet that objective.
Dave, you know more about the purchase of the kiosk than I do.
Well, that, well, we have, so I've looked at having kiosk material, like getting it from Lowe's and building it, and I've looked at a couple of kits. I've looked at the Land Conservation Trust, they have a kiosk, that looks actually kind of good. But, you know, that's like $1,000, but even the material at Lowe's or Home Depot, you're talking, you know, $500, $600, $700, $800, $1,000.
Trustees, carpets.
So, just looking at that, but how do we, what's the best way to get the money, whatever we decide to do? Is it out of?
Do you happen to have a picture of the kiosk with it, by any chance?
I did, whichever one.
No, the cheap one.
The cheap.
This is one kiosk. A lot of our kiosks need to be replaced.
Yeah.
This one would be purchased for Warren Pole. If we like it, then maybe it should become a standard, I think, for the other place.
Yeah, go like one of Thanksgiving for us, is but
Yeah, they're all different. The last one we.
So this is, the one on the left is a kit, and the two pictures on the right are the one at, the land trust at Kroll. You can see it at Kroll.
One that you said was $9 1/4? The one was $2,500?
Yeah, this one, no, that one's, this one over here is probably $1,100, and that one's about twice that, $2,500, something like that.
Well, you know, the commission has almost all of its FY '22 appropriation account left. I think it's better to spend the money, you know, before it runs out.
Mr. Cohen said, don't worry about the cost of Warren Pole.
But I want to see the Montpelier one, I like that.
Which one?
That's the one with
Yeah, the one on
$2,600.
the, that.
$2,600.
Yeah, I like that one too.
The highway department install it?
It's
What's
good, what's that?
Will the highway department install it?
Well,
Yeah, I think we have.
you and I will do it.
Will the highway department install it?
And that's not
You better look for an angel
$2,600.
That's an idea.
That's not delivered,
That's
Mark.
nice.
That
It's
one's
not
a kit.
delivered?
It's black locust posts.
Is it erosion control?
Yep, erosion prevention.
All right.
Right, John, black locust, that's the
Yeah.
fence posts. So,
That's close.
I get
That
that.
would Ashby.
yeah,
I think we
it's
should
pretty
purchase
nice.
the kiosk, because I don't think, we've always struggled in the past, we tried to get someone to help us build them.
And
They're
then,
very nice, each one was different.
yep,
The one at Oak Hill was the last one we had built, which was what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
6, 7.
And that's starting to fall
It's
apart.
in tough shape.
So,
I did the $2,600 one, it's nice. Why not go halfway?
all right.
Yeah.
Having said that, let me volunteer the following too. We discovered in the last month and a half that we have a lot more money available to spend. Would this kind of thing be considered that?
Yes, yeah, although,
So what we need to do is to look at how much those funds are and manage that kind of thing and, people like, when we wanna hire consultants for our own use, not for an applicant's use, because the applicant pays for it. I mean, we may direct them to get a peer review, but they pay for it. But there may be situations, for example, on Warren Pole, where we wanna pay a consultant to tell us about something or other.
Invasive management.
We now have a pool of money which is, I think you said somewhere around 50 or 60 grand. But
well,
that's,
no, that's the wetland filing account. The
can we
account.
use that for kiosks?
No, no.
Okay. We get, all right, so, but we got a pool of money there, can we use that for consulting?
We can use that only for regulatory. What
Yeah.
what you have
Anyhow,
available.
we have money now that we never had before.
Right, that's about eight grand that's in the land management account.
That's.
That can be used for kiosks, consultants.
How does that get replaced?
Donations.
It's been primarily donations, but actually, and I've already had some preliminary conversations, and like we do in Boxborough with a CPA, in Boxborough, there's an annual replenishment of the fund. $10,000 comes from the CPA account to that fund every year. And I think that that's something that should be done.
Let's authorize the purchase of that kiosk for Warren Pole, and to be paid for as part of the parking lot project, which the town manager indicated he would take care of.
Right, so Dave.
That doesn't come out of the $8,000 that we've done.
Right, so
And then adopt that, if we like it, adopt that as a standard.
could be standard, you know, forward, yeah.
You know how much coconut
Is it
shrimp you
every
can buy
year?
with that?
We can do a
Do
one or two.
one or
every
two.
year.
So you know how much coconut shrimp you can buy with that?
Okay, all right,
All right,
so,
so we got a motion by Dave to that
Yeah.
effect, a second on that?
Second.
Second by Bill. Any discussion?
Kyle, we do have a sales tax exemption number, so
I have it.
he knows what it
I-
is.
yeah, but I'll talk.
It'll be on the PO.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, none, yes. All right.
That's kiosk, and I know I just saw the thing you sent about the Oxbow stuff.
Yes.
So we got that,
So, I'd actually like the commission to take a vote on that tonight, if you could. So that was $2,500 to certify, a vernal pool that's right next door.
That's that little pool next to the
It's
driveway going into.
it's on the Pole's property, and Mr. and
Yeah.
Mrs. Pole are happy to have this done. We're paying for it, but, it's to our advantage and it's to their
Sure.
advantage, and they're actually, they only wanna know when it's happening, because I think they'd like to chat with the guy, I'm sure, or whatever.
So that's something, you know, again, I think if possible, if that could come out of the appropriation account, I think that's better, but it also could come out of the land management account. But I think the point is, I think the commission does have some money to spend $2,500 on this.
Okay,
Is this turtle nesting survey part of that, or is that something?
It is part of that, although I don't know if you had a chance to read the proposal or not, that they said that they're gonna spend only 1 day out there. I don't know that 1 day is enough to really do a good survey for turtle nesting, so I need to talk to them about that. But that will at least cover the certification of the vernal pool.
all right, let's have a motion on that then too.
So move we authorize the spending of up to $2,500 to Oxbow Associates for a vernal pool certification at Warren Pole.
And that's coming out of what money?
It's either gonna be the appropriation account, the annual appropriation account, or the land management account. I can speak to Paul about, the general
Just say,
Warren Pole
depending
fund.
on whichever one makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, but.
I'd try not to touch the 8,000.
Right, I agree. I think it's better to spend the money you get every year
Right.
rather than money that,
Yeah.
is built up over a long time.
So I second
Well,
that.
remember, we got $5,000 at town meeting last year,
Yeah.
specifically for Warren Pole,
Okay.
which we never did before.
Well, then I think it should be spent.
And we got some
Yes.
criticism at town meeting from some parties that we are not spending the money that's authorized.
Well,
So I second Dave's motion.
So seconded by Carl, and any more discussion, all those in favor, aye.
Right.
Any opposed, none, unanimous.
thank you.
So, let me just add a couple more things on Warren Pole before we move off of that. Is the mosquito spraying tomorrow?
I believe so, yeah.
So the helicopter comes in, and starts distributing mosquitoes, stuff in town.
Stay off Facebook tomorrow.
But it's on our, it's on
No,
our.
at least we told the people that it
It's
is.
on our, they'll be doing it on our property, so that's number one. The second thing is, we did meet with the Gad boys, one of the butters on the easements. So we're in good shape with as we understand it, certainly with the Gad boys, because we met with them, and Paul said with the other easement issue. So those will be voted on at town meeting.
Are those two separate warrant articles or one article, do you know, Carl?
That's a good question, I'm not sure. I looked at it and I don't remember now if it's one or two, but, we will vote on that next week at the town meeting.
Yeah, and Carl and I will both be at town meeting
To support that,
to
yeah.
support it.
So we think that should go okay, we hope. And, we're still waiting to hear from Jess on the land stewardship.
Yeah, what's holding that up a little bit, and I actually spoke to her today, I'm glad you brought this up, Carl, is that she needs the survey information in a format she can read, which she can't read AutoCAD, but she can read shapefiles, ArcGIS shapefiles. My understanding is, and I've spoken to a couple of surveyors, is that it's easy to convert. There's just an export. You just hit the export button in AutoCAD. But I still need to discuss this with Scott. So if we can do that. Why are you laughing?
I know nothing about that stuff.
Can you talk with Scott?
Yeah, I will.
Tamula can straighten it out for us.
And,
Right, I mean, I know you can import shape files into AutoCAD, that I know. So there must be an export function as well, right?
Yeah, no, you could never import. Right. Somebody's gonna export what somebody imports.
So that's really simple.
And just to let everyone know, I did speak with Dale Williams last week. He's the head of the Chelmsford Land Conservation Trust. And just gave him an update on our status and the fact that we're doing an update to the CR based on the new template with some changes from the lawyer. And then hopefully we'll have that to make one more internal pass and then get to him within a couple of weeks. And we can hopefully get moving on that. And especially if we have the easements hopefully resolved soon, then that will start to really move forward. And then the last thing I just want to throw in is that birthday is Friday, so I did nighttime cleanup this afternoon. I got a yellow bag full of trash on my street, so that was easy.
Where do you get the bag? I think it's downstairs.
DPW, go to the DPW on Alpha Road.
What's Friday?
Birthday.
Oh.
Yeah, so easy to fill up a trash bag, so.
Very easy.
Yeah,
Trash.
it's for Cascon's house.
Yeah,
On the other side.
the other side, yeah. I don't know what, I guess they're going down the road, they just pitch the stuff out like a window.
Okay, that's all right.
All right, good. All right, then we have minutes to approve, right? What's that?
COC.
We have COC to sign?
Yep, so that's 14 Lakeside. That was for a new garage back about 4 or 5 years ago. I did a site inspection today, everything looks fine, and recommend the commission approve this.
All right, very good. We'll get that signed now.
So,
David, I know there's a lot of things that you have to be doing. Katie brought up tonight about the COC was signed off for the Grismo project. Could you see if it was
I
completed?
will check that.
Because there was things that were not completed on that project.
This was the, clean up the
So motion by Dave to sign the COC. Very second on that. Billy Lyons on the second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Just one more thing, Mr. Chairman, before we move on to minutes. I'm not sure the commission voted to continue the notice of intent for Turnpike Road.
Oh, good point. Yes, we need to do that. So we have a motion then to continue the notice of intent for Turnpike 1/104 Turnpike Road.
until when?
May 10th.
So,
Moved by Dave, second by Bill. All those in favor? Aye. Yes, thanks for,
Intent is filling up quick.
We've got 10 hearings so far.
Oh.
hearings.
What did I say about we should have an
Some are supposed to be
meeting?
slow.
But,
Yeah.
This is true.
Well, but I got,
town meeting, yeah, we have a town meeting next week.
Good town meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Meetings in July? Do you usually skip meeting in July or August?
Yeah, we
August
usually do like
at least.
one.
Yeah. Wow.
August,
Yeah, usually.
maybe not this year.
No.
I don't know, there's less work with the former conservation agent.
There's a reason for that.
Oh, geez,
A lot of good things happening with Dave.
We do see a lot of good stuff going.
Katie, who?
too much to read.
Do you all know who, what's Lou's first name?
Joel.
You all know his wife?
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
The kids used to read books in the back of the room.
When she was a conservation agent,
They'd be doing the
she'd
homework.
bring her kids
Yeah.
into the meeting,
Yeah.
and they'd sit, they'd read comic books, and they'd read them in Finnish. Because she was homeschooling the kids, and she and her husband are both from Finland. They wanted their kids to learn how to speak.
And we were having meetings till 11 o'clock and later.
And the kids were really well behaved out there.
She single-handedly got the apartment project on River Neck Road. And I think that's why she went on conservation.
Minutes, we got minutes for, we got minutes March 1st.
March 1st.
March 1st, any issues?
Approved.
Approved by Mark Gibbs,
Right.
second on that by John. All those in favor, aye. Unanimous. And motion to adjourn? Not that we're like, moving quickly here, but.
Yep.
Yes, motion by Mark to adjourn, seconded by Carl. All those in favor, aye. Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.